Hello, I occasionally make videos that are not related to quantum idealism on my channel, and this is one of those. This is a hobby that I started in grad school, actually. I was going through a rather painful emotional meltdown at the time, and to distract myself from the pain, I got good grades in my classes despite this, by the way, but to distract myself from my pain, I started this hobby. I had these lists from way back that were of every dinosaur discovered, and I then went and updated them. They have these lists on Wikipedia for every year of new discoveries. So every single dinosaur was in these lists, and I then decided to take artwork of these individual dinosaurs and put them together into charts, which I then eventually compiled into a super chart, which has every known species of dinosaur, every known genus of dinosaur ever discovered, not species, sorry, but every known genus of dinosaur ever discovered, as well as classes of animals that you would sometimes call dinosaurs, but are not actually dinosaurs, such as, marine reptiles like Plesiosaurs, Mosasaurus, and Ichthyosaurs, quote unquote, flying dinosaurs. Sorry, froze here for a second. Which are actually, not dinosaurs at all, but pterosaurs, and then synapsids like Dimetrodon and so on. A few notes before I begin. They're divided into basic subcharts where you have basically groupings of dinosaurs. Some of them are like, they're not actually families. They used to be. One of them was like Titanosaurs, for example, where they were called a single family. It's since been split up into like 5 families. One time it was defined as having a 6th family, which is now outside of it. But because I made these lists a long time ago, or started them a long time ago, rather, they are kind of clumped together in ways that are not necessarily exactly identical to modern taxonomy, but still roughly fit the bill. This also includes what are called nomen nudum and nomen dubiums, which are naked name and dubious name, respectively. Naked names will also include informal names. These are animals that are named but not described, either in papers or sometimes in popular press accounts. And then dubious names are dinosaurs that we don't really know if they're actually separate genuses or not. But they could be. So anything that essentially could be a new genus, even if we don't know, is on the chart. I then have little, in certain areas, tallies of how many species we have. Hold on, it's freezing up on me. I don't know why it does this sometimes. Here we go. Trying to grab it. Sorry, it's quite humongous. If this thing were printed out, it would be something like 30 feet tall, actually. So I may make some commentary on the charts as I go along, and maybe on individual dinosaurs. For the most part, though, I'm simply going to be reading off the genus names and moving on, because there are a total of 1,413 dinosaurs on this chart, as well as 2,508 animals. So currently, and by the way, this updates on a fairly frequent basis. So if you're seeing this video a few weeks after its upload, it'll probably be something will probably be added to it by that point. One time there was last month, there was a time when, like, in June, there was no updates at all. So occasionally you get a dry spell, but usually they find a new dinosaur every 2 to 3 weeks, I would say, on average. And then the other ones, they find like 10 new pterosaurs a year and a few new marine reptiles a year and maybe 10 new synapsids a year. So I will simply dive into this and start reading things off. This is in the Titanosaur grouping. This also includes Euhelipods, which used to be thought of as, well, kind of clustered in the same grouping as Titanosaurs, but this was, a long time ago when I first started making these lists, and they're obviously a family just on the outside of it now, between Brachiosaurs and Titanosaurs. But here we go. And everything is to scale. A lot of these, by the way, a lot of the artwork is from a guy named Sissio Purple on DeviantArt, which I collect some of the artwork from. But he specializes in making every known dinosaur. So when I can't find artwork elsewhere, or if I simply prefer his art, I'll use that. So and we have a little guy here for scale next to each one of the charts and subcharts. All right, here we go. Abdorainerus, Abditosaurus, Adamantosaurus, Egyptosaurus, Aeolosaurus, Apisaurus, Augustinia. We got to zoom out for this guy. By the way, this is on the Titanosaur subchart, so I mentioned that a minute ago. But Alamosaurus, this one was actually lived right at the end of the late Cretaceous period. This died out literally at the 66 million year impact part where the comet destroyed, killed the dinosaurs. So it's like in Texas. Algosaurus, Ampelosaurus. Oh, and by the way, quick comment. Well, you should obviously know this. You can see here every time that I, with these, every one of these is labeled with the genus and species, and then there's the age, the location, and the approximate length. So, but that's kind of just goes without saying because you can see those. Andysaurus, Angola Titan, Antarcticosaurus or Antarctosaurus, Aracar. Now we have Argentinosaurus, which is either the biggest dinosaur or is maybe the second biggest dinosaur or tied with the biggest dinosaur, that one being Patagotitan, which is also on this particular subchart. But there's that one. It's kind of a cool color scheme on that one. Argyerosaurus, or silver lizard. Arcaravia, Arudititan, Astrophocadia, Atacamatitan, Atzinganosaurus, Australotitan. This one used to be called Banana Bendersaurus until it was officially given a proper name last year. I kind of gave it the coloration of. I use this thing called PhotoPad to modify the coloration. I gave it kind of green banana colors because of that. We have, let's see here, Australopoziden, Ostrosaurus, Balsaurus, Bolochisaurus, Baotian Mansaurus, so I'm trying to obviously, Barosasaurus, Barutitan, Bonatitan, Benitosaura, Borealosaurus, Brazilietitan, Bravosaurus, Brouhosaurus. If you notice, a lot of these Titanosaurs are rather small. It's kind of funny because they call them Titanosaurs, but some of them are gigantic, but a lot of them are actually pretty small. That was from Pakistan. This one is Brouhof Chaosaurus, which was thought to be a piece of petrified wood, but it's been confirmed to actually be. It's based on a real. The bone is actually found to be actual real bone now, not petrified wood. But I think this is a nomen dubium, but it's still commenting on it there. Campylodoniuscus, Chiausaurus, Choconsaurus, Chubutisaurus, Plasmodosaurus, which is basically just a little bit taller than a man, and Daxiatitan. Okay, and that is the first row of Titanosaurs. Sorry, I'm going to zoom out here. Oh, it's freezing on me. There we go. Okay, we're going to go to the second row. This is a humongous chart, and it's not used to being opened up all the time like this. Oh, I'm going to quick comment. I have excluded what are called ichnogenera and oogenera, which are genuses based on footprint casts or genuses based on just eggshells. They have to have hard remains, with the exception of if there is actually one exception in this chart, which we'll get to later, which is if there is skeletal remains included. In one case, there was skeletal remains of an infant dinosaur inside of an egg, and it was that's the only exception to the rule of oogenera. but it has to be based on actual hard remains because you can't know if, you know, maybe those footsteps, those footprints or whatnot actually belong to something that we already know. So it's not really easy to tell if it really belongs to a new genus or if it's just something that we already know. So it has to actually have hard skeletal remains to be on this chart. Diamantinosaurus, Dongbi Titan, and of course also another quick comment. It only goes down to the genus level because of its species would get completely out of control. And also because, you know, when you think of dinosaurs, you think of them by their genus name. You're not really thinking of them by their species name so much. You know, like a Tyrannosaurus, and there's a T-Rex, obviously, but, you know, there's like 2 species of Brontosaur and 3 species of Apatosaur and so on. You always just think of them by their first name, or genus name. Gonansaurus, Dreadnoughtus. This one featured in the recent Jurassic World Dominion movie. Drusilla, Elul Titan, Ichthyosaurus, Urketu, Euhelopus. This, remember, is actually technically outside, just outside of Titanosauria, but we're including it for now because it's, I think back when I first started making these charts, or making these listings, rather, sometime back, I think they were included as Titanosaurs or something like that, but that was a very long time ago. Europa Titan, Fukui Titan from Japan, obviously. We have Fusuisaurus, which is next door from China. Pterodactylus, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is actually the name of a clade, Pterodactylus of Titanosaurs. Gonansaurus, Gariga Titan, Gobi Titan. Let's see here. We have Gondwana Titan, Gyrosaurus, which is named after the Geological Survey of Pakistan. It's a nomen dubium, but it's kind of a goofy name. Hypsilosaurus, Hami Titan, Hisanohamasaurus, Hubaysaurus. This is Hoenghi Titan. Zoom out so you can see it. Next one is going to be Hypsilosaurus, which actually does have a lot of egg remains with them as well, but it's also based on skeletal remains. Isosaurus, Aguerosaurus, Janosaurus, Genentia, Jiangshanosaurus, Geotysaurus, Kauji Titan, Karangosaurus, Petranisaurus, Laplatosaurus, Lioningotitan, Ligabusaurus, Lyranosaurus, Liobangosaurus, Lohucotitan, and we're going to go out again, and okay, let's see here. The third row. This is the largest grouping on the entire chart, so it's like 168 different names. The next largest is going to be the Hadrosaurs, just under 100, but after this, it drops down pretty fast. So, Loricosaurus, Brouhosaurus, Gyrosaurus, these are an example of island dwarfism, I believe. In a lot of Europe used to be a giant collection of islands back in the Mesozoic, so you had little animals like that on various islands in what's now Europe. Melargosaurus, bad water lizard. I don't know why it's called that, but it's called that. Malawisaurus, Mansurasaurus from Egypt. Malgendino, which is another nomen dubium, which is associated with a Gspsosaurus and some others. A guy named Mulcani made a paper on that, and he had a whole bunch of listings of names, and it was kind of irritating because I had to add them all in. But he had like 9 different Titanosaurs alone in it. I think Marisaurus is another one of his too. It's this Marisaurus here. Mexicalisaurus, Mendozasaurus, Celsior, I believe that was just discovered last year. Microcolus, Microdontosaurus. This one I'm not exactly certain how to pronounce. It's a Titanosaur from Africa, which is kind of a unique thing. Minyama Wamtuka, Mongolosaurus, Marinasaurus, Myolensaurus, Naramba Buana Titan, Nemegtosaurus, it's from the Nemegt Formation in Mongolia, Nequensaurus, Nyxsaurus is another one of those names from the Molcani listings, which is dubious, but there's he had 9 of them in one paper, for whatever reason. Ninja Titan, Normanisaurus, we have Nodocolossus, Nullotitan, Oceanotitan, hold on here, Oharisaurus, Opisthocolocaudia, which may or may not be the same as Nemegtosaurus, but they don't know. They found the skeleton of one and the head of the other. They might be the same, they might be different. They're in the same formation, and they could be the same. They don't know. They're not from the same specimen, because they're found from different locations, but they could be the same species or genus. Ornithopsis, Otogosaurus, Ovarosaurus, Pachysaurus, Paludititan, Panamericansaurus. Now, this one was actually funny because occasionally I run out of artwork, in which case I'll use other things. I'll use, sometimes even outlines of child's toys. In this case, it was actually an outline. This is actually a photograph of a sculpture in a national park somewhere, or a state park somewhere, of this dinosaur. And I clipped it out, and you kind of see the sunlight on it. But yeah, this is actually a actual photograph of a sculpture, a life-size sculpture. Paralititan. Now we have this one. Remember we said there was another one that Argentinosaurus was tied with? This is called Patagotitan. This is arguably the largest dinosaur in the world. And they have a skeleton of this in the Field Museum up in Chicago. It's in the lobby. They used to have Pseudotyrannosaur there, but if you ever get a chance to visit the Midwest, I would highly recommend visiting the Field Museum because it's simply magnificent. And they got a large dinosaur hall up in the second floor then, too. So, Pellegrinosaurus, Petrobrosaurus, Fuwangosaurus, Pitacoonsaurus, Protognathosaurus, and Puertosaurus, Pukyongosaurus, Punatitan, Kaowenlong, Kingziosaurus, Kinlingosaurus. By the way, in the Titanosaur grouping, there is a dinosaur for every letter of the alphabet. This is kind of a fun, it's that big. It's big enough it has at least one dinosaur starting with every letter of the alphabet in it. It's a neat little piece of trivia. Quaesitosaurus, Quitexsaurus, Rapidosaurus, Rinconsaurus, Rocosaurus, Rucocaudia, Ruquatitan, and this is, wait a minute, Ruyangosaurus, Saltasaurus. You can see the body armor on some of these. This is the Saltasaurid family. Has a lot of them have scuts on them, like you see on Ankylosaurs, but they're on sauropods instead, long-necked dinosaurs. Sarikamasum, I believe that's another one of Melkani's dinosaurs. Sarmantosaurus. This one is arguably the tallest dinosaur in the world. It's called Sauropoziden. So Argentinosaurus, either that or Patagotitan are the largest. Sauropoziden is the tallest dinosaur, though. Savannasaurus, Chingopana. Let's zoom out. Sibirotitan. Let's zoom in here. That's what I thought. Silotitan, Sonetosaurus, Titan, which was just discovered recently, but it's an informal name at the moment. Sulimonsaurus, Tamba titanus. There are a lot of South American titanosaurs, by the way. I don't know why that is, but they seem to. I mean, you find them in a lot of continents, but there's they particularly clustered up in South America for some reason. Tangveosaurus, Tapuosaurus, Tangrisaurus, Titanosaurus, which now, believe it or not, is a nomen dubium, despite the fact that it names the entire clade. Tobosaurus, with the nice giraffe patterning on it. We have, that was another of Sissio Purple's artwork pieces, by the way. Trachytitan, Trigonosaurus, Triumphosaurus, Uberabotitan, Ultrasaurus, which is, by the way, not the Ultrasaurus of Jensen in, I believe, the late 70s, early 80s. That one has since been synonymized with Supersaurus. Vahini, Volgatitan, Wintonotitan, Xianchanosaurus, Zinghisaurus, Yamanosaurus, and let's see here, we got Yongjinglong, Gunmenglong, Yongxianosaurus, and lastly we have Zucheng Titan, and that is all the 168 Titanosaurs. Okay. PhotoPad lets me zoom out, or Photoshop rather will zoom out all the way, but this one I gotta zoom out kind of slowly. Sorry. And let's zoom in. The Brachiosaurus the next. Oh, that's not the Brachiosaurus. We could get to that later. Right by that, we have our listings of everything in Sauropodomorpha. And by the way, if an animal is not, it doesn't neatly fit into a given family, I will get it to its closest family. So this is not entirely 100% accurate with that. It's the family or everything close enough to it that would, say there's a dinosaur lacking a family. I just like that because it's a neat way to tabulate them and a neat way to then put them into the charts. So, but it's not always 100% phylogenetically accurate, but it's convenient to basically put them together in these, if an animal doesn't fit a neat category, I find the closest category to it. So, Apatosaurus, Angloposeidon, Astrodon, Biconcaveoposeidon. That one's a nomen dubium and has some really weird looking vertebra, apparently, that they've not seen before, but they think it's related to Brachiosaurus. Bathriospondylus and the famous Brachiosaurus. We have Cedarosaurus, row 2. Oopsie. Chondrosteosaurus. Dinosaurus. And by the way, sometimes there are dinosaurs that simply do not have art, and I will, in those cases, I find an animal, like another animal that's very close to it, and I'll use that as like replacement art. So some of these will show up as Brachiosaurus and like Google image search or whatnot. Dinodocus, Duryatitan, Eucameratus Europasaurus, which is another instance of island dwarfism in Jurassic to Cretaceous Europe. This one actually was, I believe, both pretty close to where Compsognathus lived and Archaeopteryx lived. Fushanosaurus, which is either a basal brachiosaur or just outside of it. It was closely related to the base of Brachiosaurus, though, in either case. I believe that is line 2. There we go. Gigantosaurus. Giraffatitan, which is what normal Brachios. This used to be a species of Brachiosaur, but it's now seen as a separate genus. It's from Tanzania, and it's what their common image of a Brachiosaur is based on. Ichthyosaurus, Lusotitan, Marmarospondylus, Padilosaurus. On to the last row. Go to the Camarasaurs next. Pelorosaurus, Pleurocolus, or Pleurocoelus, either way. Sonorosaurus, Sauriatitan, Venenosaurus, Volchimeria, and Vivria. So next one, we're going to the Camarasaur chart, which is right here. There's only 15 of these. I've never, after I first made the chart, I put in replacement art for some of these since then, but none of them have actually been, I have not added any new dinosaurs to this since this spring was first compiled. So they're not finding these very quickly. Aguerosaurus, this one is Aregosaurus, Bellosaurus, Brontomerus, Camarasaurus, line 2. Cathetosaurus, let's see here, Dashenpusaurus, Galvasaurus, Joberia, Clamelisaurus, Lorhinhasaurus, Neurosaurus, Sugiyamasaurus, Testephinsaurus, Tehulchisaurus, and that is the Camarasaurs. Now we're on to the Diplodocids. I've actually split these up into subfamilies. Some of them are thought of as actually families, but remember I kind of lump things together in this chart sometimes. So this is actually Diplocoidea in a proper phylogenetic listing, but I've split them into a single family with it simply divided the families. I re-identified them as subfamilies, but I think they used to be thought of as that way. But remember, these listings were made a long time ago. So let's see here. Amphicolias. There's another Amphicolias which was thought to be the world's biggest dinosaur, but it's actually been reclassified as a Rabachisaur, and the reason for the size of the animal was due to the size of the vertebra, but Rabachisaurs have much larger, proportionally larger vertebra than do other Diplodocid, but we'll get to that later. Apatosaurus, Atlantosaurus, Brouhosaurus, Brontosaurus, which is now, by the way, not the same thing as Apatosaurus. The original Brontosaurus, someone attached a Camarasaur skull to it, and they thought it was a different genus, and they said, well, no, it's not. This is the wrong skull, so therefore, they thought it was close enough to Apatosaurus, but then recently, as of, I believe, 2015 or 14, something like that, I think it was 15, they decided that the differences between the two traditional Brontosaurus species was sufficient to classify it as its own genus anyway. So we've got Brontosaurus back now, which is nice because that's my favorite dinosaur, and it's also the kind of archetypal sauropod. Remember that became my favorite dinosaur after watching a movie named Baby the Lost Legend when I was in the 80s. Pre-Jurassic Park era. But yeah, that was when I was very young. Dinosaurus. Amerigosaurus with the cool spine on it. Amerigotitanus. Bajudosaurus, which was from a couple of years ago. They think that may have had some like veins in between them, or not, like sail structure. I may update that at some point to fit that. Brachytrachelopan, which is kind of unusual. This is an extremely short-necked sauropod, which is kind of hilarious. There's later on we're going to find an iguanodont that is extremely long-necked. That almost looks like a sauropod in a way, but this one is a short-necked sauropod, kind of converging into. You might almost think of it as a hadrosaur, except for the legs, obviously, and the tail. But that's technically a sauropod. Dichrosaurus, Dislocosaurus. By the way, we're in the Dichrosaur subfamily. Above was the Apatosaurine subfamily. There's actually a family, but we're going to call it a subfamily on this chart. Zestrophaeus, Lingwulong, Pilmatua, Smithanosaurus, or Smith lizard, for whatever reason, Suasia, and let's see here. Next one is the Diplodocid subfamily. This is actually a proper subfamily, by the way. Australopithecus, Barosaurus, or heavy lizard. This is from the Morrison Formation that lived alongside a lot of other sauropods like Camarasaurus, Brontosaurus, and Brachiosaurus, as well as the next one on the list, Diplodocus. That was my brother's favorite dinosaur because it was related to my favorite dinosaur, or one of my favorite dinosaurs. It was when we were kids. We liked it way back. Galeomopus, Catadocus, Leoncupal. Let's zoom out. Did I get everything on that list, that level? I did. Megacervixosaurus, Supersaurus. You can see the whole thing, Supersaurus. Seismosaurus, by the way, is not here because it's now classified as a new species of Diplodocus. So it's not its own genus. Tornaria, that used to be one of the largest dinosaurs. Actually, I remember when the Brachiosaurus was the largest dinosaur, and then they found Supersaurus, and then Ultrasaurus, which is now the same thing as Supersaurus, and then they found Seismosaurus. So for a while, Seismosaurus was the largest one, and then they got upgraded by the Titanosaurs, the ones we talked about before. Amazonsaurus. This is the Rabachisaurine subfamily, or which is actually a family, but once again, Cathartosaurus, Comahuosaurus. Let's see here. Next level. Demandosaurus, Zahara titanus, Haplocanthosaurus, Histriosaurus, Itipuosaurus, Catapensaurus, Lavocatisaurus, Limasaurus. Oh my goodness, what happened here? This is the Marapunisaurus, but it doesn't have its data tag on it. I don't know why. This was what was... I'm going to have to fix that. It must have gotten covered over by something by accident. Oh, the Ichthyosaur. Sorry about this, guys. This is Marapunisaurus, but I'm going to have to fix that. Nigrosaurus. I make these in modules, so you see... there are... so there's like actually 16 subcharts that are added on it, and then this subchart, I believe, actually cut off the Marapunisaurus, the bottom of his legs, and his identification tag, their data tag. Nigrosaurus, Nopcospondylus, Raosasaurus, Rabachisaurus, Tatuinia, Xenoposeidon, and Zapalosaurus. I don't know how I missed that. That was totally screwed up. I'm going to have to fix that later on. All right. Then we have the Pterosaurs, which is actually the smallest chart on this subchart on the superchart. These are just outside of the Neosauropods. So they're relatively primitive dinosaurs, primitive sauropods, but they're a little more advanced than the Cetiosaurs and the Mamenchisaurs. Amansia, Atlasaurus, Cardiodon, Losilosaurus, and next row, Mirasaurus, Moabosaurus, Narindosaurus, Neosodon, Oplosaurus, Tendaguria, and then Turiosaurus, and Zabi. I don't know why they just call it Zabi. It's not the shortest name, by the way, of a dinosaur, which you're going to see later on. There's one that's literally the smallest possible name in the that's allowed under nomenclature rules. And then we have the Cetiosaurs. We actually have kind of three separate families of them. We're calling them subfamilies, and this is the first one is just the Cetiosaurs, though. Amygdalodon, Asiatosaurus, Baguelia, Oraposaurus, Cetiosauriscus, Cetiosaurus, Chebsaurus, Dichongosaurus, Ferganosaurus, Laparentosaurus, Nebulosaurus, Patagosaurus, Rotosaurus rutellum, which is actually a name from before proper nomenclature rules. It's the so it's the oldest thing on this chart, but they didn't know it was a dinosaur back then. Shunosaurus with a tail club. Spinosaurus. I don't know if that actually had that Thagomizer on it, but it may have. That's just how the art was, though. This one is the next group is the Mamenchisaurs, which are for 2 lines. These are found usually in China or in Asia. There's a few that are not, though. This is, or at least one that's not. Analong, Anhuilong, different name. Chuangisaurus. And we have Dactylsaurus, Eomamenchisaurus. This one is Huang Shanlong and Hoodiesaurus. Let's zoom out to see it. Hoodiesaurus. And then Mamenchisaurus. This particular type species, which I use, I don't think that's the largest one, but it's not as big as the one you saw in Lost World. I don't know if you could drive a motorcycle under that guy's legs. Omisaurus. Sorry, this is Omisaurus here. Let's see here. Jijian Long. And we have, let's see what this one is. Romaleopacus. There's one of these from a lot of these are from China, but one of them is from Africa, I know. I believe Tanzania. Tianshanosaurus and Tonganosaurus. And let's see. Oh, here we go. Here's the one from Africa. Yep, Tanzania. Wamwaracadia. Xinjiang Titan. Yuanmusaurus. Zygongosaurus. And I believe that is it for the Mamenchisaurus. Now let's move on to the Volcanodonts, as well as this also includes the Basal Sauropods, Basal Sauropods, just outside of Prosauropods. Some of these look kind of Prosauropod-like. Archaeodontosaurus, Shakiangosaurus, Demolosaurus, Gongxianosaurus, Isanosaurus. By the way, this is the only sauropod, the first sauropod known and the only sauropod known from the Triassic. So this is just stepped outside of the prosauropods. Is the earliest known sauropod dinosaur. Codosaurus, Kunminglosaurus, Lancangiangosaurus, Omdenosaurus, Oceanosaurus, Sanpasaurus, Tezodosaurus, Volcanodon, Yabinosaurus, Yazalsaurus, Zizhongosaurus. And then lastly, we are on to the prosauropods, which are all on a single chart. And here is the subtotals for them here. And again, these cluster some animals together, and I may uncluster some of the families at some points, but for right now, they're clustered into 5 families. Even though they're probably more like 9 families here. Ardonyx, Amosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Blacanosaurus, Lempluxora, Leonerasaura, Meroxtenos, Polinosaura, Sclithemia, Scyphopanosaurus, and we have, those are the Ankylosaurs. We're on to the massive spondylid now. Adiopapasaurus, Truxiongosaurus, Coloradisaurus, Fendusaurus, Fulingia, Glacialosaurus. By the way, this is one of 6 identified Antarctic dinosaurs, and there's actually a 7th, which is a nomen, either nomenudum or nomendubium. It's not officially designated yet, but this is one of 6 identified, 6 officially named dinosaurs and 7 officially or informally named dinosaurs from the Antarctic they've discovered so far. And it's the only sauropodomorph in Antarctica they've found so far. Cryponyx, Gypasaurus, Ignavusaurus, Jingshanosaurus, Columolumo, it's kind of a funny name, Lasaurus, Lufengosaurus, Massospondylus, and we Negwevu, sorry, Pachysuchus, Pradhania, Saurosaurus, Ceotad, Zingzuolong, and Unanosaurus. And then we go to the lower groupings. Melanosaurus, which are actually, I think there's actually 3 separate families in this one, but they're all kind of very small, but they're used to be thought of as just Melanosaurus when I made the list, so it kind of stayed that way. Entedonitrus, Camelodia, Eucnemasaurus, Ingentia, Ledumahati. That's a very large prosauropod, by the way. I think it's the largest prosauropod, and it's from the early Jurassic. It's on this list, or on this chart, which is actually even discovered, period, then, because everything's on this chart. So, Lysemsaurus, Melanosaurus, Ryogosaurus. So actually, the 3 families are the Lysemosaurids, the Melanosaurids, and the Ryogosaurids, but they all been kind of clustered together because of how they were listed when I first made these lists. Plateosaurus, these actually have 2 families in them in this grouping, but it's all listed as just the Plateosaur family. Eucamasaurus, Eucamasaurus, Irisosaurus, Issy. I believe that was discovered this year. It might have been last year, but I think it was this year. Jaclopallisaurus, Macrocolum, Moosaurus, Orosaurus, Plateosaurus, Plateosaurus, of course. This, by the way, was the 5th dinosaur ever discovered. They called it, I think, it was some kind of like the German lindworm or something when they found it. But yeah, it's the 5th dinosaur ever discovered. Ruhelia, Unesaurus, Zixoposaurus, sorry. By the way, the Unesaurids are the 2nd family in this grouping. Zixoposaurus and Gonansaurus. And this one also has 2 families in it, but it's all listed as 1 family so far because of how it was listed back then. Therodontosaurus. This is a Theropodsaurid, sorry. This is Ignosphytes, which may or may not be a dinosaur, but it still is conceivably, so it's listed as such. I think it might actually be a Silosaur, but we're not sure. But it still could potentially be, so it's in this chart. Aguerosaurus, Archosaurus, Asilosaurus, Bagualosaurus, Burolestes. Next line, Chromigisaurus, Euphrasia, Guibosaurus, which is the 2nd grouping, well, called the Guibosaurs, or the 2nd family. Nambalia, Pompodromius, Panphagia protos. By the way, Panphagia is the oldest known sauropodomorph. It just diverged from the basal dinosaurs at the time, which I've kind of included with the theropods, but you can see it has a kind of the roughly bipedal plan still. A lot of them do, actually. Pantidraco, Saturnalia, and then Therodontosaurus, which, by the way, was the 4th dinosaur ever discovered. I don't know what the 6th or 7th were. I just know the 5 go. So we're on the other 3 when we go through the chart. The first one, obviously, being Iguanodon. All right, the Theropod Dinosaurs, which we have the tallies of which are here. The big 3 Cs, the Carnosaurus, Ceratosaurus, and Silurosaurs. The Ceratosaurs are right here. It's the first group. This also, I decided to include the basal theropods in this one because Silophysids and Dilophosaurs used to be included with them, and of course Herrerasaurs and they'll put them somewhere, so they're here. But yeah, this includes, these 2 are no longer thought of as being Ceratosaurs, but they're traditionally were, so I've included them. So let's see here. It's the best way to do this chart. Okay, Ceratosaurus, Fosterovenator, Genodectes. This is a very rare family, by the way. They don't often find Ceratosaurs for whatever reason. Of Ceratosaur, the family Ceratosauri, and the individual ones are very rare as well. This one was in the Morrison Formation, though. The Ceratosaurus was. And then the Coelophysids. I think this is all, with the exception of this, I think this is most of this is from the Triassic period. Camposaurus, Coelophysis, Comanchesaurus, Cryptoraptor, Dolichosuchus, Dracoraptor, Erythrovenator. I think that was found a few years ago. Erythrovenator was. Gyrosaurus, Halticosaurus, Lepidus, Niasasaurus, Lecuelosaurus, Lophostrophius, Lucianovenator, Megapnosaurus, Pengu raptor. By the way, that used to be called Syntarsis. Megapnoraptor did. Or Megapnosaurus, sorry, did. Pengu raptor, Pendrag, that was found, I think, last year. Podocosaurus, Paralvenator, Procompsognathus, Pterospondylus, Sarcosaurus, Stegosaurus, Tachyraptor, and Taniosaurus. And Liliosternus, I put in the Dilophosaurus, which we'll get to in a minute because it was close enough. Dilophosaurus, Dracovenator, Liliosternus, which I believe, by the way, this along with the next one, not a Tesseraptor, not a Tesseraptor, were kind of transitional between Dilophosaurs and Coelophysids. So there's not a Tesseraptor, Schwing, Basaurus, Sinosaurus, Zanklodon, and Zupasaurus. And next we are on to the Abelosaurs, the most famous of which is the Carnotaurus. Abelosaurus, Arcovenator, Alcosaurus, Ostrochirus, or Ostrochirus, which is Chirus is hand. Berberosaurus, Betasuchus, Carnotaurus, Chenanisaurus, Dandacosaurus. We'll zoom out again. Zooming in. Dryptosaurides. I believe this is the largest abelosaur. These ones, a lot of these survive right to the end of the Cretaceous, by the way. The Carnosaurs went almost extinct by that point. I think there was like one Carnosaur left at the end of the Cretaceous. But, yeah, there were a lot of abelosaurs at the end of the Cretaceous. Echrixanatosaurus, Eoabelosaurus, Genosaurus, Goemesia, which I believe they discovered this year, Ilocalesia, Indosuchus, Indosaurus, Corupi, Cryptops, Lametosaurus, Leucocon, Leucosaurus, Majungasaurus, Niebla, Ornithomemoids, Orthogoniosaurus, Pycnonemosaurus, Quilnisaurus, Rahiolosaurus, Rajasaurus, Rugops. Rugops is a very small abelosaur, as you can obviously see. Then we have Saltriovenator, Scorpiovenator, Spectrovenator, Tarascosaurus, Thanos, named after, of course, the everyone's favorite supervillain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Titanovenator, I think this is tied with the largest one. Trolcosaurus, Viovenator, Vitacridrinda, some of those are awkward names. Joaquinosaurus, Xenotarsosaurus. We have the Noasaurs, which are the direct sister group of the Abelosaurs. So we have Afromimus, Baosaurus, Berthosaura, Coelurides, Compsognathus, Daholokeli, Elaphrosaurus, which is a pretty large, probably the most famous Noasaur, Huanculsaurus, Inosaurus, Jubalpuria, Lavasuchus, Ligabueno, Limosaurus, Masiacosaurus, Noasaurus, Ozraptor, Sidormimus, Spinostrophius, Velocisaurus, Vesperosaurus, and Vitacrosaurus. By the way, whenever there's an SP by a name, it means that they haven't designated a species yet. Either that or it's informal, and therefore they've automatically not designated a species yet. And then the Herrerasaurs, which are technically close to the base of the theropods, but or the base of the dinosaurs altogether, but we've included them here, so including all the basal theropods, or basal dinosaurs, period, because it's the only place they really go. Okay, so we have Alwalcaria, Casiosaurus, Chindisaurus, Sinosaurus, Daimonosaurus, Eodromius, Eoraptor, Gnathovorax. By the way, this is based on the this is actually an image of the Jurassic World Evolution computer game, Herrerasaur. We have Herrerasaurus itself, which is, I think, is a little bit too brightly colored, but I may fix that at some point. Mirum Niasasaurus. Now, Niasasaurus is very unique. This comes from the only dinosaur from the Middle Triassic on this chart, and it is 243 million years ago. Now, the neat thing about this is that the dinosaur-silosaur split that led to the dinosaurs was 247 million years ago. So there was only 4 million years between this and the split between dinosaurs and silosaurs. However, according to my friend Gunter Beckley, who is a paleontologist, he tells me that it takes about 4 million years for a new genus to evolve. Which means, and since you classify animals by what genus they are in, this genus belongs to this family, the other genus belongs to some other family, etc. What this means is that it took 4 million years for an officially dinosaurian genus to evolve. And well, this is 4 million years after the split, so therefore this is the first dinosaur genus. Everything after that would have been kind of seen as like a silosaur evolving in a dinosaur-like direction. And so, and therefore, this is not just the first genus; this is the first species. It seems that this may very well be the very first genus and species of dinosaur. So this is Niasasaurus parringtoni is the first dinosaur ever. Sanwansaurus, Styracosaurus, Tawa, Teuwasu, and Velocipes. And that is it for the Ceratosaurus. Now we're on to the Carnosaurs, which this again has a kind of an older classification scheme where I included the Megalosaurs and Spinosaurs in it, whereas today people kind of just see the Carnosaurs as roughly synonymous with the Allosaurs, which is on the other side of the chart. All right. So, Afrovenator, Condoraptor, Cruxichiros, Dubrilosaurus, Duriovenator, Eustreptospondylus, Gasosaurus, which is from China, pretty small animal. Iliosuchus, it's like a kind of a tiny T-Rex in a way, but the arms are wrong, obvious. About as tall as a person, as you can see. Kaijiangosaurus, Lashansaurus, Magnosaurus, Mangahawanga, some New Zealand. It's an informal name dinosaur. Marchosaurus, Megalosaurus. This one was, I believe, this is the second dinosaur ever discovered, right after Iguanodon. It was one of the 3 that was used in the naming of the clade Dinosauria as well in that paper from the 1800s. Mifunisaurus, I forget the guy's name who did it, but the guy who famously made the paper designating Dinosauria was one of the 3 dinosaurs. Mifunisaurus, Mifuni Eru, Pandoravenator, Piatnitskysaurus, which by the way I believe is a different family, but it's like very closely related to it's a megalosauroid basically, so it's in this chart. Pivitusaurus, Poecilopleuron, Streptospondylus, Torvosaurus, Wehenvenator, and Youngyangosaurus. And let's go to the Spinosaurs. Altospinax, Ingaturama, Baryonyx, Camarilosaurus, Ceratoseucops, Crustatosaurus, Iberospinus, which was discovered last year, Ichthyovenator, I believe it was last year. It might have been this year. Irritator, Ostafricosaurus, Oxalia, Raparovenator, Siamosaurus, Sigilmasosaurus, Sinopliosaurus, and we have Spinosaurus, which is the ever-changing. I mean, they keep finding new updates to this. The joke is that by it was first conceived of as just like a T-Rex with a spine. Then they found the alligator mouth, and they discovered, oh, by the way, it's quadrupedal or almost quadrupedal. Then later on, they find the tail fin, and then the big joke is that by the year 2050, after more discoveries, they're going to discover that this is actually the same thing as Dimetrodon. It's kind of the joke. Suchomimus. It's kind of cool. It's the only officially known aquatic. Well, actually, there's actually a second aquatic dinosaur as well, which we'll get to later. But this is one of 2 officially known aquatically based dinosaurs. Obviously, you can go on land as well, but it's aquatically based. Suchomimus, Suchosaurus, Vellibonavenatrix, And the Vectispinus, this is also known as the White Rock Spinosaurid. It's its unofficial name. That's why it has SB. And then Weenionyx, which is an informal name as well. That was listed in that big theropod book I have. And then we have the Allosaurs, also known as the Carnosaurs. I split these into 6 subfamilies, which some of them are actually families, but I've made all of Allosauria just Allosaurs. So they're split into subfamilies as well. This is the Allosaurus subfamily. Allosaurus, like you see in Jurassic World. The second Jurassic World movie, sorry. Antrodemus, which is probably Allosaurus as well. Apatodon, now this is an example of a nomen dubium that we had to add in. It's by the rules. I had to add it in because it's my chart, but had to add this in. It's almost certainly the same thing as Allosaurus, but it's based on a single tooth. But the problem is, they could have compared that tooth to determine whether or not it's an Allosaur. The problem is the tooth is now lost, so we can never actually resolve it. So Apatodon is pretty much on this chart forever, unless someone happens to find the tooth and compares it. Epantarius, Eructopus, Prodinodon, Saurophaganix, which may or may not be a gigantic Allosaurus, but it's also from the Morrison Formation. Size of a T-Rex, actually. Volgetosuchus. We go to the next line. These are the Cartara Dinosaurs, which include the largest dinosaurs, largest meat-eating dinosaurs ever. Acrocanthosaurus, Cartara Dinosaurs, Concavenator, Datanglong, Eocarcharia, Giganotosaurus. I believe that was the one in the recent Dominion movie, Jurassic World Dominion. Kelmaeosaurus, Largest Venator, Lusovenator. Next line. There's a lot of these, so there's 2 lines for them. Mapusaurus, Araxes. They just discovered that recently, last month actually, or actually it was this month, early this month. Osteoporosia, Saraniops, Shaoqilong, Siam Raptor, Tarovenator, Tyrannotitan, Vecta-Aerovenator, Veteropristissaurus. Now let's go up to the next one. Will be the Metriacanthosaurs. Asphaltovenator, Chienkosaurus, Lorenhanosaurus, Metriacanthosaurus, Ischidasaurus, Siamotyrannus, Sinraptor, Szechuanosaurus, Zooenhanosaurus, Yingchuanosaurus. And we have the Monolophosaurs, and as well as the things that are closest to them. Chuandongocolurus, Cryolophosaurus. Cryolophosaurus is one of the 6 found from Antarctica, again, or 7, depending on how you count them. Hyantovenator, Merosaurus is not actually in Monolophosaurus, but they're just outside of it, I would probably say. Marisaurus, Monolophosaurus itself. By the way, this one is at the Milwaukee Public Museum, going up these stairs to the main exhibit halls. Raptor, well, at least it is for now, because they're constructing the new museum headquarters, so which is going to be larger. But yeah, you can see that there for right now. Raptor, and we zoom out. Oh, by the way, oh wait, have we gotten there yet? I don't think we have yet. Oh, never mind. Okay, we're coming up on it now. And these ones are the Megaraptors. Ariostion. These are transitional into Coelurids, apparently. Or related to the base that evolved into Coelurosaurs. Sometimes they're included as Coelurosaurs by some people. But I classify them as Carnosaurs still. Ionoraptor, Australovenator, Bahiriosaurus, Fukuiraptor, Ketsuyamasaurus, Mape Macrothorax. That was discovered just this year. There was one, I believe, it was an informal name. It was from, this one is from the Maastrichtian, by the way, which is right at the end of the Cretaceous period. This is the only Carnosaur, I believe, that was, or this one or like another one. I think actually they entered the Maastrichtian, but didn't get all the way to the end. But yeah, there's very few of them that actually made it to the very end of the Cretaceous. Almost the Carnosaurs had almost totally died up at that point. Megaraptor, Marusraptor, Orcoraptor, Fu Wing Venator, Rapator. That's from Australia. It's a dubious dinosaur, but it's enough known that they have a full name for it and something of a description on it. Tretayenia, Vioraptor, and then the Neovenator's, Neovenatorines, or Orids, but get the picture. By the way, in some of these charts, I occasionally I'll run there will not be sufficient data for a length, in which case I'll do what's called phylogenetic bracketing. I'll find out what the animal's closest relatives were, and then I'll do an average to try and find a rough approximation. And occasionally those rough approximations hit spot on. Occasionally have to be updated at times, but to get a size estimate, if all else fails, I'll use what's called a phylogenetic bracket and just compare it to its closest relatives. Chalantosaurus, Deltadromeus, Gualico, Neovenator, Seots, and Uligbegsaurus. And that is it for the Carnosaurs. And next we're on to the Silurosaurs, which is a very humongous grouping of theropod dinosaurs. It's bigger than both the previous two groups combined. The first group, I have a Maniraptor subchart built into this, because this is an entire group unto itself. And then there's the other ones outside of Maniraptoria, but we'll go through the Maniraptor families first. We have the Therizinosaurs. Let's start with these guys. Alxosaurus, Bipaosaurus, Enigmosaurus, Erlianosaurus, Erlicosaurus, Ishanosaurus, Felcarius, Gianchanosaurus, Linguanosaurus, Martharaptor, Nanchungosaurus, Nemongosaurus, Northronicus, Parellotherizinosaurus, Segnosaurus, Suzusaurus, Therizinosaurus, and Tiantosaurus. And then we go to the Oviraptors, which I recently split into subfamilies as of a couple updates ago, I think last month. Anomaly pests, Anzu, Apatoraptor. This is the Kegnathids, by the way. Sorry. Anzu, Apatoraptor, BB Long. This is the one that was discovered from only fossil eggshells, by the way. They found an actual dinosaur in it. Remember I said there were going to be genus that was contained in this chart, but that's because it has skeletal remains. The egg was big enough, as you can obviously see, it's a giant oviraptor. The egg was big enough to include the skeletal remains of the baby in it. And so we have baby long. And that's the only genus on this entire chart. Kenegnathesia, Kenegnathus, Chirostenotes, Cytipes, Elmisaurus, Epichirostenotes, and Gigantoraptor, Hogriphus, and then the Caudipterids. Oh, actually, wait, sorry, there's a little more to the Kenegnathus. Leptorhynchus, Microvenator, Ojoraptorsaurus, and then the Caudipterids. Aviomymus, which is actually technically not, I think it might be, it's pretty close to it, but it's the only one it really fits into. Calamaspondylus, Caudipteryx, Incisivosaurus, Kakuru, it's from Australia, Ningyuansaurus, Protarchaeopteryx, Simulcaudipteryx, Xingtianosaurus, and then the Oviraptorids. Agensyngenia, Banji, Cytipati, Contraraptor, Corythoraptor, Ganzusaurus, Gobiraptor, Heyuania, Hunanosaurus, Jiangzisaurus, and then Khan. And next level, Luoyangia, Machirosaurus, Nankingia, Nemegtomaya, Nemingia, Oxoco, Oviraptor, Rinchenia, Shanyangosaurus, Shixingia, Tong Tianlong, Wulatolong, Yulong. And then we'll go up here. This is above. Okay, so this is the Scansoriopterigids. This is a very unusual grouping of them, of dinosaurs. These actually have. It's one of the 4 times that that dinosaurs evolved flight. Other than one of them was birds and 2 that was in the Troodont line, but this is one of the 4, and this actually has bat-like wings, which is kind of funny because they're on reptiles, which kind of raises you could ask the question: are these actually kind of tiny miniature dragons? And you could technically kind of say, yeah. I mean, they kind of fit the description of a dragon, but very tiny. Or at least Yi and Embopteryx do. Yi more than Embopteryx. Embopteryx, Epidexipteryx, Scansoriopteryx. This is the smallest dinosaur on the chart, even though it might be a subadult. I think it is. And then Yi-Ki, which is, remember I said there was the smallest allowed name under nomenclature rules? This is the smallest allowed name. Is Yi, and Yi-Ki for the full name. It's tied with a bat named Eoia, which is kind of funny because they both have bat wings. The Eoia is a live animal, by the way. So, and the Alvarezsaurs. We have Achillosaurus. These are closely related, I believe, to the. Maybe they're not, but I think some people were saying they were related to or potentially related to the Ornithomimosaurs. Albertonicus, Albinicus, Elnachetri, Alvarezsaurus, Banicus, Bonapartinicus, Bradycneme, Ceratonicus, Zahara onyx, Haplochirus, Hepastiornis, Colcenorus, Col, Linhenicus, Mononicus, Nemegtonicus, Ondogurval. I think that might have been discovered this year. Parvicursor, Patagonicus, Cuiopenicus, Shishugonicus, Shuvia Triarchuncus. That's from the late Cretaceous Hell Creek Formation. So it lives like right alongside Tyrannosaurs and Triceratops. Tugulosaurus right before the end of the KT extinction. Tugulosaurus, Zeazonicus, Zeoniacus, and then we have up here we have the Raptor Dinosaurs, the Deinonychus, everything in the Troodont and Dromaeosaur groups. Again, some of these are technically, I mean, you could technically classify Ankylosaurus as a separate family, but some people classify them as Troodonts, so I put together the Troodonts here. Ankylosaurus, Ornis. By the way, the Ankylosaurids are the closest clade to the birds. Right outside of this is the Archaeopterids, which are like 2 Archaeopteryx in the Archaeopterygiid family. And this right here, Ornis, is probably the most bird-like. Actually, this is the most bird-like dinosaur on this entire chart. They officially became birds when they started flying. And some of the other animals were flying, in other clades, but they weren't in the same crown group that led to the modern birds. And so because they're technically classified as dinosaurs rather than birds. The Microraptors, I believe, could fly, but they didn't lead to birds, so they're classified as Microraptors. It's kind of funny because there actually is a Chinese cryptid that has a description similar to a Microraptor, which is kind of funny. Say a bird with 4 wings. But you think about it in modern paleontological context, you're like, oh, that's a Microraptor. So there's Ornis Kaihong with iridescent hummingbird-like feathers, Eosinopteryx, Ostromia, Pedopina, Ceracornis, Zeotingia, Ichthyosaurus. And we have the Jinfingopterids, or actually Jinfingopterigines here. Technically, this is actually a full-blown subfamily, not even a family. Almus, Jinfingopteryx, Leoningavenitor, Tamaro, and then the Cynovenators, Deliansaurus, Gemini Raptor, Hesperornithoids, Ian Hulong, Milong, so just me or Milong, but Cynovenator, I'm sorry, I was saying the species, I was saying not saying the species for all of them though, so that's why I went back. Cynovenator, Cynosnasus, Zixiosaurus, and then the Troodont subfamily. Albertovenator, Archaeornithoids, Borogovia, Byronosaurus, Elopteryx, Euronychodon, Gobivenator, and then Imperobator. This is one of 6 or 7 from Antarctica. Technically, he's just outside of the Troodonts, but it was the closest thing that it would fit into, so I fit into the Troodont family. Coparion, Latina Venatrix, Linhevenator, Paleopteryx, Papiliovenator, Pteranodon, Pectinodon, Philovenator, Polyodontosaurus, Sauroornithoids, Cyanornithoids, Stenonychosaurus, Talos, Tochisaurus, Troodon, Urbicodon, Zingiangovenator, Yaverlandia, Zanabazar. And then the raptors. This actually has 6 subfamilies in it. They're all proper subfamilies. This is the Dromaeosaurs. By the way, I believe that the Ichthyornithids, some of them, maybe they didn't fly. I don't know. They might have flown separately from the Archaeopterids. But I think that was one of 4 lines that was able to fly. But it evolved parallel to, but just like outside of the Archaeopterids, which were the ones that led to the birds proper, which we classify Archaeopteryx as a proper bird. So that's the cutoff line between the avian and non-avian dinosaurs, which is obviously just the non-avians on this chart, because otherwise we're going to include street pigeons, which kind of defeats the purpose of, you don't think of those as dinosaurs, even though they technically are. The Chilobator, Dakota Raptor, Deinonychus, which is actually what the Jurassic Park raptors were based on, even though it still was scaled up a little bit in the movie, even still. Dromaeosauroids, Dromaeosaurus, Idamerus, Coreosaurus, Idamerus, I think. Phaedrolosaurus, Pyroraptor, Utahraptor, which doesn't have the feathering on it. I may update that at some point, but it would have had feathers. Varyraptor, Vectiraptor, Urgovuchia zepsalis, and the Hulscaraptors, which are the duck-like raptors. This one is very much like a duck. It's kind of funny. It's a raptor evolved like a duck. Convergent evolution with a duck. Hulscaraptor, Hulsanpes, and Mahakala. Just have 3 in that subfamily. We have the Microraptors are up next. Chengyu Raptor, Fukui Venator, Graciloraptor, Hesperonychus, Microraptor, Pneumatoraptor, Ricardo Estesia, sorry. Chaneg, Cyan Ornithosaurus, Tianyu Raptor, Wulong, Zenyuanlong, Zhongjianosaurus, and then the Unenlagenes. Sorry, we're going to go for the Sauroornitholestines first. Atrociraptor, Bambiraptor, Sauroornitholestes, and wait a minute, that's just 3. Sorry, that's just 3 in those, and then this goes down to the next level here. It's not the same family; it's just in line. So, Austroraptor, Brutriraptor, Loposaurus, Nequenraptor, Ornithodesmus, Pamparaptor, Rhonavis. By the way, this one, Ornithodesmus, shared a name with a Pterosaur, which then got renamed, which we'll get to later when we get to the Pterosaur subchart. Or there's Rhonavis. Okay, then we have Unenlagia, Ankylosaurus, Yapupiara. I believe that was, I think the remains for that might have been burned in the exhibit. They had that fire in the museum in Brazil some years ago. Then there's the Velociraptorines. Acheroraptor, Atosaurus, Balar Bondoc. This one may have actually been a bird. They think it might have actually been just evolving flightlessness again the second time, but they can't rule out that it might have been a Velociraptorine. So they technically included in this chart as a dinosaur, even though there's a good chance this is actually technically is a flightless bird, even though you can obviously see it's very Dromaeosaur-like. Boreonychus, Diniobellador, Juliraptor, Cagosaurus, Cansegnathus, Kuru, Linheraptor, Luanchuanraptor, Euthytes, Oviroraptor, Shri, Sagan, and by the way, Shri used to be called Ichabod Craniosaurus because it didn't have a head when they found it, after the headless horseman story. But they thought it might have been a velociraptor, but it's actually the sister taxon of velociraptors. So Shri, Sagan, and then finally Velociraptor. And that is it for the Maniraptors. Now we're on to the non-Maniraptoran Coelurosaurs. It's very funny because when I was very young, Coelurosaurs used to be just the small theropods, and now it includes Tyrannosaurs. So it used to be kind of a basket, a wastebasket taxon for just small dinosaurs, but then they properly split them apart. Alamotyrannus, Albertosaurus, Electrosaurus, Alioramus, Apatosaurus. By the way, this Tyrannosaurus, it's called, I treat it as a big family here, but it actually includes Tyrannosaurids, Dryptosaurids, and Proceratosaurs, as well as just basal Tyrannosaurs. Apatosaurus, Arctosaurus, and Apatosaurus, I believe, is a Dryptosaurid. Those were on the eastern coast. The west coast of North America used to be called Laramidia back then. It was separated by this North Atlantic Seaway. And so there was like a big sea between. There's like two separate continents, which are now just one continent. So the Tryptosaurids were split off on the east side, and the Tyrannosaurids as well as kind of into Asia on the west side. Arctosaurus, Oblisodon, Aviatyrannus. That's a very early Tyrannosaurid, or Tyrannosauroid. Begaraton, Bicentenaria, Bistaheversor, Capitolsaurus, which is actually discovered in Washington, D.C. itself. Only dinosaur discovered in Washington, D.C. I believe that one is a Nomen Dubium or Nomen Nudum, but it's on the chart because I've included those. Chincanchosaurus, Cryptotyrannus, Daspletosaurus, Dinodon, Dilong, Diplodocid, Tryptosaurus, Dynamoterror, Ambosaurus, and Dryptosaurus, of course, is one of the ones on the east coast. We have down here Eotyrannus, Fudibosaurus, Gorgosaurus, Guanlong, Genbisaurus, Duratyrant, Colescus, Lebocania, Lythronax, Moros, and Nanotyrannus, which may very well be a juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex, but we don't. I think it's not. I think there's a little bit of debate about it. It's not actually known for 100% certain, but we're pretty close to certain that it's actually a baby T-Rex. So, but I had to technically include it because, it technically could be still another genus, even though it's probably not. Nanoxaurus, Protoceratosaurus, Kianzoosaurus, Raptor Rex, which might be a juvenile Tarbosaur, but we don't know. Sinotyrannus, Stoxiosaurus, Suskytyrannus, Tarbosaurus. This used to be called Zunityrannus, by the way. Suskytyrannus did. It's Tarbosaurus, okay, then Venator, Neurosaurus, last line, Teratophonius, Thanatothyristes, Timmerlingia, Tanuchisaurus, and then the famous Tyrannosaurus Rex, the most famous dinosaur of all time, or the most famous animal of all time. Zheong Guanlong, Eutyrannus, most famous scientific name of all time, I should say. Zhucheng Tyrannus, and Zuolong. Maybe not a Homo sapiens, but I don't know. It's right up there. This is potentially the largest, the most famous dinosaur. Sorry, most famous animal actually, most famous scientific name. And the Ornithomimasaurs, which includes the proper ornithomiids as well as the Dinocerids. Here we go. AP Ornithomimus, Ansseromimus, Archaeornithomimus, Arkansausaurus, Arkansaurus, B. Shanlong, which is a Dinocerid, one of three. Silvasaurus, Dinocerus itself. That must have been kind of cool to see. Dromaeosaurus, Gallimimus, the largest ornithomimid proper, not a Dinocerid. Garudimimus, Grucimimus, Harpymimus, Hexing, Kinarimimus, Kumamoto Mafunisaurus, which is a dubious genus, but it's included, so I'm actually 100% certain that's an ornithomimasaur, but I found the name in a book that I was able to identify the location with it, and there was only one theropod discovered that was an unnamed ornithomimasaur, so I'm assuming they're the same one. That Colbert, and then, of course, the size, I bracketed that one, so I didn't have anything else to go on. That Colberia, Nequebasaurus, Orchomimus, Ornithomimus, Parazanisaurus, which is the last of the three Dinocurids on the chart. Pelecanomimus, Quapalong is the only. Actually, this is the only one that's been discovered in North America, too, of the three Dinocurids. Quapalong. Okay, so Quapalong, Radivates, Saltillomimus, Sanchusaurus, Zenzusaurus, Cynornithomimus, Struthiomimus, which is probably the most famous. Well, before Gallimimus is the kind of the original famous ornithomimid. The name literally means ostrich mimic. Thecocolurus, Thecospondylus, Timimus, Totalomimus, and then Voldoraptor. So we have. Did I get them all? Yeah, I got them all. Okay. And then lastly, we have the compies, which includes also Basal Sauropods, as well as some things that are going up to the Tyrannosaurid line, like I believe Saurosaurus itself was going up to the Tyrannosaur line. But yeah, these are Basal Saurosaurs. Onyxosaurus, Aeron, Aristosuchus, Bielmodon, Bipagnathus, Alamosaurus, Saururus. It's from the Morrison Formation, by the way. Compsognathus. This one lived right alongside that miniature Brachiosaur in Germany. Eucameratus, Jurovenator, Miritia, Negexiosaurus, Ornitholestes, Santanaraptor, Scipionyx, and Scurriomimus, or squirrel mimic. They actually discovered this one had a squirrel-like tail, which is kind of cool. The fluffy, kind of hair-like proto-feathers on the tail. Sinocalliopteryx, which is technically the largest compsognathid proper, and not just something closely related to it. Sinocolurus, Sinosauropteryx, which we actually know the tail feathering of the coloration of the Sinosauropteryx, by the way, so this is accurate. They've discovered melanosomes in the fossil impressions of the feathers. So, Canicolagurius, Ubi Rajara, which this one got. The paper was based on a fossil that was taken from Brazil, and because of that, they said they weren't supposed to take it from Brazil, and they took it anyway. And so because of it, they said, therefore, the name is not quote-unquote valid. So now this is now a nomen dubium or nomen nudum, which is kind of stupid because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the actual paper itself, but because of this stupid political thing of who owns the fossil, they want to say that it's no longer the a correctly identified dinosaur species. But it's kind of stupid. It got repatriated to Brazil, but why they have to change the name is dumb. This one has this little kind of weird quill structure shooting out the sides of it, which is what makes it very unique. And then Zunmenglong, which is the smallest copy on the chart. And that is all of the theropods, which is the largest grouping of dinosaurs. So that's finally over with. And then we have the ornithischians. You have a single line. We, of course, have 6 different lines on this chart, and this one has a line to itself, the ornithischians. 3 subcharts. Let's see, we can't zoom in. Sorry. Trying to zoom in here. Here we go. Start with the ornithopods, which includes also, basal ornithischians. Heterodontosaurs, is a Brictosaurus, Chilisaurus, which I couldn't know where to put it. It's probably going to get its own family at some point, but it's not really a heterodontosaur, but this is the closest fit for it, so it fit here. This actually has some weird connections to, it seems to connect theropods and ornithopods, believe it or not, though it has some traits that are common to sauropods as well, which makes it a very weird dinosaur. Echinodon, Eocursor, Frutidens, Gonansaurus, Heterodontosaurus, Lycorhinus, Manidens, Pegomastix, and then Pisanosaurus, which is either the very first ornithopod, but it could also be a silosaur. Then there's some people who think that the silosaurs actually are early ornithopods, and so in which case it would kind of upset the chart, in which case silosaurs would also be dinosaurs, and everything would have evolved from ornithischians, which is kind of interesting. Tian Yulong, why they have ornithischians did not lead to the bird line, but saurischians did, despite the ornithischians having the bird hip is beyond me, but just an interesting fact of convergent evolution, I guess. The Fabrosaurs, which are technically not really I think there's a few that would actually do belong in the proper Fabrasaur family, even though it's not really considered a valid family anymore, but they're just kind of seen as basal ornithopods. Agilosaurus, Fabrasaurus, Hexenlusaurus, Colindodromius, which some of the fossil impressions of Colindodromius seem that they may have had feathers, so hard to say, but it's arguably the case they may have had feathers, which is kind of weird, but who knows. Lesothosaurus, Sanxiosaurus, Tavirosaurus, Technoceratops, which probably wasn't a dinosaur, but we can't know for certain, so we're including it here. It might have been actually a Silvasaur. Trimucrodon, and then we have those. The Hypsilophodonts, which are actually a grouping of 3 different families of kind of basal ornithopods. The Hypsilophodonts, the Parksosaurs, and the Dryosaurs, which Dryosaurs merged into the Iguanodont family later on. Albertodromius, Atlascoposaurus, Convolusaurus, Changchunsaurus, Changmiania, Diluvicursor, or Flood Runner, from Australia. Dryas, I think it was a couple of years ago they found that one. Dryosaurus, Dicyllotosaurus, Earlhazosaurus, Eos Dryosaurus, Eugongbusaurus, Hogotherium, Gasparinosaura, Gideon Mantelia, Galleonosaurus, Gongbusaurus, Haya, Hypsilophodon, and then Ayuku, which they just discovered recently. That was like literally the last week they found that one. So this is a very recent update. Joholosaurus, Kangnosaurus, Corianosaurus, Lausaurus, Leonellisaura, it's from Australia with the very long, unusually proportionally long tail. Mawadi cursor, Nanosaurus, which used to be Othnielia and also a drinker, but it's now converted just to Nanosaurus. That was in the Jurassic Park novel, by the way. Nevadodromius, Nautohypsilophodon, Orodromius, Joholosaurus, Eructodromius, Parksosaurus, Phyllodon, Contosaurus, Siluosaurus, Skeledromius, and Tenontosaurus, which I think this was way back classified as a Hypsilophodont, even though it's obviously very, probably more of an iguanodont, but it's kind of between. I don't know why they classified it as that. It was a very long time ago. But it's kind of traditionally been put in there, even though it probably is properly an iguanodont. The Parksosaurs were the Thescelosaurs. The Thescelosaurs belong to the Parksosaurus family. So, Thescelosaurus, this was one of the dinosaurs in the Hell Creek Formation, right at the, which is living in the Maastrichtian right up to the end of the dinosaurs. So, Trinisaura Voldosaurus. Oh, by the way, Trinisaura was one of the Antarctic dinosaurs, so it's one of the cool things about it. Voldosaurus, Wewarosaurus, Zeosaurus, Yandusaurus, Euosaurus, and Zephyrosaurus. Now we are on to the iguanodonts. Oh, completely silly random trivia. There are 238 genera of ornithopods here, and there are also, in the Jurassic Park novel, there were 238 dinosaurs in the park before they started breeding. Altirhinus, Anabetsia, I know, stupid trivia, right? Beryllium, Bayaneurosaurus, Bihariosaurus, Biscoviosaurus, this is the dubious dinosaur, the 7th Antarctic dinosaur, which is not officially named yet, but it's tentatively named Biscoviosaurus, even though it's not got an official paper to it yet. Bolong, Brysonius, Burianosaurus, Colovosaurus. Next line. Camptosaurus. Camptosaurus was the largest ornithopod in the late Jurassic. This is as large as they got. It's kind of funny because, that's relatively small for a dinosaur, even though it's, large for a human, but it's small for a dinosaur, which is kind of funny considering that, this led to things like Iguanodon and Parasaurolophus and Chingtungsaurus later. Cedrorestes, Comnoria, and Camptosaurus lived in the Morrison Formation with the Brontosaurus and the Allosaurus and the Stegosaurus. So Cedrorestes, Comnoria, Docododon, Darwinsaurus, Draconix, Equijubus, Eucersosaurus, Fostoria, Fukuisaurus, Huxleysaurus, Hippodraco, Hypsilospinus, Iguanocolossus, and Iguanodon, which of course was the first dinosaur ever discovered, officially named. Isasacursor, Gentosaurus. Go here. Ginzalsaurus, Koshisaurus, Cucufeldia, Lenzalsaurus, Ligiagosaurus, Blancosaurus, and Lurdosaurus. Lurdosaurus and Gentosaurus are. Remember I mentioned they were iguanodons that looked sauropod-like. Well, Lurdosaurus is kind of sauropod-like, whereas the other one was kind of. It looked more like an iguanodon, even though it was the neck was ridiculously tiny. So it kind of crosses the, they kind of converge, shall we say. Macrogryphosaurus, Megnomanus, Mantellisaurus, Mantelodon, Matheronodon, Moclodon, Morellodon, and Morosaurus, which is one of the ones from Antarctica. Or 3 ornithopods from Antarctica, I believe. It was 3, yeah. Okay, so we got Morosaurus. Okay, and then Metaburosaurus, Nepiosaurus, Osmacosaurus, Ouranosaurus. Okay, Owenodon, sorry. Perissactus, Penelopognathus, Planocoxa, Ponerostius. And we are going to the next line. Portelsaurus, Proa, Proplanocoxa, Ratchismosaurus, Rhabdodon, Rheabininohadros, Sectensaurus, Selacoxa, Chuangmiosaurus, Siamodon, Sirindhorna, Singanosaurus, Taloncowan, Theophytalia, Tygostius, Eutyodon, Zuulong, Zelmoxes. And now we are on to the Hadrosaurs, or the duck-billed dinosaurs, which is the second largest family in the entire grouping. So, and it's kind of cool because this one actually has all of ornithopods, but it's the, whereas the Tanosaurs, you could split them up into families. These are actually properly one single family. And so this is the largest, probably the largest family of dinosaurs proper. The Hadrosaurs, or duckbills. 104 genuses here. So let's get started. Acrostavus, Adelophus, Adinomosaurus, Edgnabia, Amurosaurus, Anasazisaurus, Ankylomasticator, Aquilorhinus, Aurelisaurus, Arenisaurus, Atlantohadros, Arsanosaurus, Augustiniolophus. Sorry, some of the names are a little goofy. Hard to pronounce at times. Bactrosaurus, Barsboldia, Pterosaurus. And we zoom out to make this a little faster, going across. Blasisaurus, Buonapartosaurus, Brachylophosaurus, Canardia, and Tyrannosaurus, which was a Chinese parasaurolophine, which actually survived right to the end of the late Cretaceous, even though Parasaurolophus is also late Cretaceous, but it was at a lower stage of late Cretaceous. I believe it was I think it was the Cenomanian, but someone can correct me on that if that's wrong. But Tyrannosaurus, I know, made it to the Maastrichtian period. Troilodon, Cyanodon, Cleorhynchus. By the way, Maastrichtian is the, in case people haven't realized yet, Maastrichtian was the last stage of the Cretaceous, lasting about 6 million years. Actually, yeah, about 6 million years. Cleorhynchus, Claosaurus, Corythosaurus, Diphtonglong, Diclonius, and Edmontosaurus. And we go to the next line. Eolambia, Euatracodon, Phylax. Phylax, I think, was discovered last year. Godolosaurus, which is actually a name from a museum pamphlet. I think they have it's named somewhere in a museum, but I don't think it's not an official name. Gilmoriosaurus, Gleeshades, Gobihadros, Gongpoquansaurus, Gryposaurus, Hadrosaurus, Another Parasaurolophine, Hylong Gianosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, Huolosaurus, Huhucanatulus, Hippacrosaurus, Hypsibema, Jaxartosaurus, Jayawati, Camusaurus, Kazakh Lambia, Kalumpasaura, Kerberosaurus, Cutalisaurus, Curtosaurus, Kundurosaurus, Layangosaurus, Lambiosaurus, Lampampasaurus, Ladyrhinus, Levnosovia, Lopphorothon, Magnapolia. Magnapolia is one of the largest hadrosaurs, by the way, so the largest one in North America, I believe. It used to be a species of Lambiosaurus, but it's now its own genus. Maiasaur, or mother lizard, which had nice nuclear families, raising clutches of babies. Manchuros, I think it's the Aspen Lake Cretaceous. Manchurosaurus, Microhadrosaurus, Nasciobetosaurus, Naningosaurus, Nanyangosaurus, Nippanosaurus, Olorotitan, Ornithops, Ornithotarsus, Ornithomeris, Pararabdodon, Parasaurolophus, Plesiohadros, Padition, Probactrosaurus, Probachelophosaurus, Prosaurolophus, Protohadros, Pteropelix, Rhinorex, Sabinosaurus, Saheliana, that's from Mexico, by the way, Saheliania, Saurolophus, Cacernosaurus, Shantungosaurus, which was the largest hadrosaur ever. There was an even larger one, I think one single specimen, I think they potentially estimated to be like 70 feet long or something like that, but this is the average size, I believe. Humongous animal. Stephanosaurus. Seeing that compared to a human is pretty amazing. They've been like the size of an Intricotherium. That giant rhinoceros from the Pliocene or whatever. Might have been before that, but anyway, we have Tanius, Telmatosaurus, Tethys hadros, Thespius, Pletolophus, which was discovered last year, which is a Parasaurolophine, which is kind of in a transitional stage between another group and the Parasaurolophines. You can see the they named it like I think it's like an Aztec letter named Tlatl, and that's why they have named it that, because the crest looks like a Tlatl. Trachodon, which is kind of used to be the original archetypal ornithopod, but now it's a dubious genus. Probably synonymous with Apatosaurus, but we don't really know, so it has to stay on the chart. Centausaurus, with the goofy unicorn-like head or crest, which might have been a little bit different than that, but that's how it is for reconstructed for now, as far as we know. Ogronalic, Velafrons, Willie Nakak, sorry. It's got a unique name, the Q at the end. Wilogosaurus, and then that's not an accidental misspelling. It is actually spelled that way. I checked it once, thinking it might have been. So Wilogosaurus, Yamatosaurus, Yunganglong, Zheng Henlong, and Zuo Yunlong. And that is all of the duck-billed dinosaurs. Now we're on to the Marginocephalians, which are a grouping comprising both the Pachycephalosaurs and the horned dinosaurs, or the ceratopsians, which some of them are not horned, but the frilled ones. All right, so let's start with, it's kind of funny, is we think of this as kind of a separate grouping, but if this one family, if the single ceratopsid family had not evolved, we probably would have thought this is simply an offshoot of the ornithopods, like a subclade of ornithopods, but because of the development of the ceratopsids at the end of the late Cretaceous, it's seen as its own kind of large group now, so which I kind of like. It's a nice group. All right, ceratopsids. You have Achelosaurus, Agathalmus, which is probably a Triceratops if we don't really know. It's a dubious genus, of course. They don't know the size of the horns. This is kind of a guess they made. So, Jugoceratops, Albertoceratops, Ankyloceratops, Rhinoceratops, Avaceratops, Bisticeratops, Brachyceratops, Bravoceratops, Centrosaurus, Ceratops, Chasmosaurus, Cuhiloceratops from Mexico, Coronasaurus, Quintenceratops, which was discovered, I think, 2 years ago, maybe. Diabloceratops, Duranticeratops, which, by the way, this has not officially been named in a paper yet, but if it is, it's probably going to be the largest ceratopsian ever discovered. They thought it might be a species of Triceratops, but it's probably its own genus. And Discanus, next line, Ionosaurus, Eoceratops, Eotriceratops. Okay, that's a Centrosaurus again. Kind of went over that one too fast before. Eotriceratops, Judiceratops, Cosmoceratops, Macaroceratops, Multiceratops, Medusaceratops, Minificeratops, Mercuryceratops, Mojoceratops, Monoclonius, only something that's not a ceratops, the Pseudoceratops, Navajoceratops, Netoceratops, Ojoceratops, Pachyrhinosaurus, Pentaceratops, which is named because of the cheekbone was kind of, the two cheekbones are kind of like pronounced enough to be thought of as kind of additional horns, even though they're not really horns. Polyonyx. By the way, Netoceratops used to be called Diceratops. Until I think it was like a beetle was named Diceratops. They had to rename it to Netoceratops. That happens a lot. Beetles comprise about a third of all species ever discovered. So there's a ridiculous amount of beetles in the world. I think it was something like if you lined every, I think one in 3 was every insect, and then 1 in 4 was every. You had every animal lined up at random across. They've ever discovered 1 in 4 at random would be a beetle. Regaliceratops, Rubiosaurus. That's related to the Styracosaurs. Sierraceratops, Sinoceratops, Spicomelis, Spinops, Stellasaurus, which is also related to the Styracosaurus, which is actually a very beautiful animal. It's discovered last year, I believe. Or either last year or the year before, but that's Stellasaurus. Styracosaurus, which is what it's related to, kind of the original famous one with the horns around the frill. Tatankasaurus, or Tatankaceratops, sorry. Terminocavus. That may or may not be. I think that was made into an official genus as of last year. I think it used to be an unofficial one, but I think it's official now. Titanoceratops, Taurosaurus. There's a skeleton of this in the Milwaukee Public Museum if you guys ever want to come and visit. Triceratops, the all-time famous archetypal marginocephalian and ceratopsian. Tyrannoceratops, Utahceratops, Vegaceratops, Windyceratops, Xenoceratops, Eucameratus Zuniceratops. Zuniceratops is a very small one, by the way, so as you can obviously see. This one is actually, I believe Zuniceratops was either that one or I think that was one that was transitional into from non-ceratopsids to ceratopsids. And there was another one that was technically Tyrannoceratops is right outside of Ceratopsidae, but it doesn't really fit anywhere else, so I put it in there. It's the closest thing to it. So, and then the non-ceratopsid ceratopsians. So we have, starting with the protoceratopsids, Aguerosaurus, Auroraceratops, Begaceratops, Brevioceratops, Crespidodon, Gobiceratops, Graciloceratops, Culceratops, Lamaceratops, Magnorostris microceratus, which was in the Jurassic Park novel as well as in the recent movie. It used to be called Microceratops, but again, we found another beetle with a stupid name, which you therefore had to change the much more famous dinosaur name for the beetle. Kind of irritating beetles. Platyceratops, and then Protoceratops, the famous dinosaur that was. Remember when they had those old displays with Ornitholestes or Oviraptor trying to steal eggs from Protoceratops and discover that Oviraptor was not really an egg thief at all. It was probably herbivorous as well. And then the Leptoceratopsids. Aegiaceratops, Binoceratops, Cerasinops, Fairysaurus, which is from my dad comes from British Columbia, and this is kind of unique because this is the only dinosaur discovered in British Columbia, unique to British Columbia at least. So I think they found some dinosaurs there, but not unique. This one is unique to British Columbia, so it's kind of cool because it's where my dad's from. Gryphoceratops, Ichthyoceratops, Leptoceratops, Montanaceratops, Nodoceratops, Prenoceratops, Eudanoceratops, which was an unusually large Leptoceratopsid, as you can see, from Mongolia. That would have been quite the size of a cow. Yeah, about the size of a small cow. Maybe a regular cow, even. Unescoceratops, Zhuchengceratops, and then the Sitaka Swords, which technically these are kind of, I don't even know if Sitaka Sword is probably a family anymore, but it includes, there were a few, like Chaoyangosaurus, I think was its own family, and then there was, I think the Archaeoceratopsids were its own family as well. Okay, so we have Sitaka Swords. Okay, these are didn't have frills quite yet. I mean, some of them might have had frills, but these are like the bipedal basal ceratopsians, as well as basal marginocephalians for that matter. Albolophosaurus, Archaeoceratops, Aquilops, Begs, or Begsi, I think it stands for some Mongolian god or something like that. Chaoyangosaurus, or Chaoyangsaurus, sorry. Helioceratops, Julianceratops, Koreaceratops, Leoceratops, Megalodon, Micropachycephalosaurus, which is this used to be thought of as a pachycephalosaur. Now they're thinking it's more of a ceratopsian type. Though it's obviously at that point they're pretty close still. By the way, that is the longest known dinosaur, or longest dinosaur name. It's got 23 letters in it in all of Dinosauria. So compared to Yiki with the shortest of being 2. Mosaceratops, Psittacosaurus. By the way, this is actually a very accurate depiction of a Psittacosaurus. This was a picture of a very paleo-accurate model, which they actually know the skin coloration of this one, as well as the porcupine-like quills on the back. So this is probably the most accurate depiction of a dinosaur discovered yet, or made from discoveries yet. Sinopelix, Zhuanghuceratops, Yamaceratops, and Yinlong, which is the most basal marginocephalian. And with the most basal marginocephalian, we're going to go past the ceratopsians. We're going to the Pachycephalosaurs, which are also marginocephalians, but here we go. I believe there are 22 of these. Acrotholus, Alaskacephal, Amptocephal, Colepiocephal, Dracorex, which is a pretty good chance that this one is actually a juvenile growth stage of Pachycephalosaurus, but we don't know for certain, so it's on the chart. Ferganocephal, Forminocephal, Goyacephal, Gravitholus, Hansuasia, Homolocephal, Microcephal, which is kind of cool that they have a small Pachycephalosaur again, given that Micropachycephalosaurus has been moved to the ceratopsians. Ornatotholus, Pachycephalosaurus wyomingensis, which is the largest and most famous Pachycephalosaur, of course, seen in the Lost World. Prenocephal, or Prenocephaly, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Cynocephaly, Spherotholus, Stegosaurus, and Stygimoloch, which was in the second Jurassic World movie. It's probably actually another growth stage of Pachycephalosaurus, given that we've only found subadult Stygimolochs, but no juvenile Pachycephalosaurs. So this is probably the growth stage after Dracorex, but again, it could also be its own genus, but we don't actually know 100% for certain unless we found like a herd of them or something. Texocephal, Tylocephal, or Tylocephaly, Texocephaly, I don't know how you pronounce it properly, but cephaly or cephal. And then Gonansaurus, which is another small. Actually, this is actually a smaller. Gonanocephal is the smallest pachycephalosaur. It's 2 feet long. And then the Thyreophorans, or covered lizards, covered dinosaurs, with the armor on them. And now we have 2 families, Eucameratus and Stegosaurus. Go with the Eucameratus first, which are more basal. Basanosaurus, which was discovered just this year. It's probably a bit bigger than that, but because they found a subadult. But I kind of rounded it. It was like the subadult was like 9 feet long. I rounded to 10, but it might have grown bigger than that. But who knows? Who knows how subadult exactly was? Basanosaurus, Chunkingosaurus, Craterosaurus, Gigantspinosaurus, with the huge spines coming out the sides. That one's in the Jurassic World Evolution game, by the way. Gonansaurus, which is also in the Jurassic World Evolution. Ichthyosaur. This is a very unique dinosaur that is it's transitional still, and it's like a bipedal stegosaur. Rhinoceros. If Ichthyosaur ever has a sister taxon, I'm expecting this is going to have its own. It's going to branch off into its own family. But for now, this is the best place to put it. And we got the Rhinoceros again from England. So we have, there's those. Then we have the proper stegosaurs. Well, you're all stegosaurs, but the stegosaurids. Adverticlet, Alcovosaurus, Americastegos, which is potentially a dubious genus, but it's added. Or it may not be by now, I don't know, but it's in there anyway. But it's from Argentina, which is unique, because I don't think they've ever found those in South America before. Chengdusaurus, Chiolingosaurus, Decentrurus, and Dreadnoughtus, which is the latest surviving stegosaurus. It's like a living fossil of its time. It's the early late Cretaceous, and it's 10 feet long, which is the size I gave Basanosaurus. But Basanosaurus is probably at that size is still probably subadult. So I'm going to guess this is probably the last surviving stegosaur, as well as the smallest stegosaur. Aguerosaurus is kind of cute, isn't it? It's like the size of a Great Dane, or maybe a very small pony, more like a Great Dane size. Aguerosaurus, Eoplophysis, Ferganastegos. This is another dubious genus, but added in. Hesperosaurus, Hypsilosaurus, which I think might be a stegosaurus, but we're not certain. Gonansaurus, Kentrosaurus from Africa. Lexovisaurus, Loricatosaurus, Muragaia with a stegosaur with a very long neck. Mongolostegos, Moncanosaurus, Paranthodon, Saldamosaurus. Last line, Samodrakon, Stegosaurus, which is the most famous thyreophorn and the most famous stegosaur, of course. It might have been a bit smaller than that, but I think that's also the outer size limit. Stegosaurus there, okay. And Tuoginosaurus, Brouhosaurus with the very short plates, Yingshanosaurus, and then on to the basal thyreophorans and ankylosaurs, which the basal thyreophorans are included with the ankylosaurs, so we'll start here. The Scelidosaurs. Alocodon and Hadrosaurus, Bionosaurus, Emalsaurus, Conbarosaurus, Laquintosaura, Lusitanosaurus, Scelidosaurus, Scutellosaurus, Sinopeltosaurus, Tadiosaurus, and Eucameratus. And then we have the Nodosaurs. Acantholepin, Acanthopholis, Anamantarx, Anoplosaurus, Antarctopelta. That's one of the Antarctic dinosaurs, by the way. Borealopelta, Brachypodosaurus, Cryptosaurus, Denversaurus, Dungyingopelta. And next line, Dracopelta, Edmontonia, Europelta, Pheropectus, Gargiliosaurus, Gastonia, Glyptodontopelta, Gyrosaurus, Hoplitosaurus, Horshamosaurus. I think there was another label underneath it that got to erase that at some point. Horshamosaurus. Okay. And we have Did I get... Wait. Did I skip lines? I think I got this line. I'm reading them kind of autonomously. So actually, I did. I know I got this line. Sorry. Not thinking. Aguerosaurus, Hylurosaurus. Hylurosaurus was the third dinosaur discovered. It was also in that paper that described dinosaurs for the first time. Invictarx, Memoropelta, Neobrouhosaurus, Nodosaurus, Paleoscincus, Panoplosaurus, Papasaurus. We're going to zoom out again. Peloroplates, Polocanthoids, Polocanthus, Priconodon, Preodontognathus, Proplanoplosaurus, Dinosaurus, Sarcolestes. It was one of the earliest ankylosaurs, proper ankylosaurs. Sauropelta, Sauroplates. And let's see here. Silvasaurus Spicomelis. This one is weird. This one has the spines are actually connected to the rib cage themselves. These are not scuts. These are actually extending from the spines themselves. The ribs themselves. Stegopelta, Stegosauroids, Stegurus, which is another unique one. This one has a tail club, but it's not a normal tail club. There's a certain Aztec weapon this was very similar to. It looks somewhere between a tail club and a thagomizer. It's multiple joints actually, and each of them it kind of spikes outwards. It's a very unusual structure. Struthiosaurus, Tau Halong, Tencocephalus, Texacetes, Vectensia, Z. Giangosaurus. Okay, and the ankylosaurids proper. Aslis lapelta. Sorry, one of those names that's hard to pronounce. Echinocephalus, Elidopelta, Amptosaurus, Ankylosaurus, which is, of course, the most famous ankylosaurid. Anodontosaurus, Bisectipelta, Cedarpelta, Cheongqilong, Crichtonpelta, after the famous Jurassic Park author Michael Crichton, who unfortunately died. He died the day Obama was elected. I didn't hear about his death because Obama was elected the very same day or the very next day. Which he got to, fortunately, live past that nightmare, so did not get to see that nightmare. Crichtonsaurus, Dioplosaurus, Euplocephalus, Gobisaurus, Anmulosaurus, Jindipelta, Jinyunpelta, Leoningosaurus. Now, Leoningosaurus is a very unique animal. It has a whole bunch of, that's why they call it paradoxus. It has a number of unique features to its name. It's the second aquatic dinosaur in addition to Spinosaurus. This actually it also has plates underneath its belly. So it has kind of like how a turtle has plates underneath its belly. This one has plates on its belly as well. And the reason for this is they believe it actually lived like a turtle. This is a ankylosaur that has convergent evolutionary traits with a turtle. It is also the smallest ornithopod, or ornithischian. The 1.6 is scaled up because it was actually juveniles. But I read in the paper somewhere, and if someone can dig this up, it would be very helpful. But they said that it was based on like 2 specimens that were both subadult. But the location it was found, they had a bunch of more specimens that were never excavated that are supposedly still in the rock, like a whole bunch of them. And some of them are larger, and they have I think I remember 1.6 feet being the size of them, and they're including the adults. And so this is the smallest ornithischian dinosaur, and it's the only aquatic ornithischian dinosaur. And it is also the only carnivorous ornithischian dinosaur. This is an ankylosaur that ate meat, but it didn't eat big meat. The reason they found that is they found sardines in its stomach. It was eating fish, which you expect something that is going to live in a pond. A turtle is going to eat small fish and crabs and whatever else he finds in the pond. Although some turtles, of course, eat plants as well. So I'm going to guess this might have been omnivorous. Malevus, Minmi, Minotaurus. Okay. Nautocephalosaurus, Eucotokia, Pishansaurus, Panacosaurus, Platypelta, Sachania, Scolosaurus, Serendipitoceratops, which is, they call it ceratops because they thought it was a ceratopsia, and they found later on that it was an ankylosaur. Chamosaurus, it's from Australia, by the way. A lot of the specimens in Australia are not well preserved for whatever reason, which is why they could only get partial remains from it. Chamosaurus, Shanxia, next line, which is the last line. Cyan Ankylosaurus, which is a very large ankylosaur from China, discovered, I think, last year, or the year before, either one. I think it might have been last year. Taurosaurus, Tarchia, Tianchisaurus, Tianzenosaurus, Tsagantegia, Zarapelta, Zongyuansaurus, Ziapelta, and Zool. Zool is the, if you had a list of dinosaurs alphabetically, this would be the very last in the list, which is kind of unique because it's also the last dinosaur on the chart. And the next line is going to be the non-dinosaurians, and of course it's named after the demon from the Ghostbusters movie. All right, the non-dinosaurian line has the synapsids, the pterosaurs, and the aquatic reptiles. So we're going to go start with the aquatic reptiles, which includes the plesiosaurs, the mosasaurs, and the ichthyosaurs. All right, there are 8 families of plesiosaurs. These are actually proper families. I haven't, condensed families or anything. There are, in fact, 8 families of plesiosaurs, according to current understandings of phylogeny. Arentmosaurus, this is the microcleids, by the way, as you can read. Arentmosaurus, Lusonectes, Microcletus, Plesiopharos, Plesiopterus, Ciliosaurus, Westphaliasaurus, and then we have the Plesiosaurs, which is kind of at wastebaskety, but it's also at the it's not completely, though. There are some proper plesiosaurs. It is close. I think this is at the base of the plesiosaur family tree, too. Apatosaurus, Apatocodon, Eoplesiosaurus, Hydroorion, Lorospondylus, Plesiosaurus, Stereosaurus, Taphosaurus, Zarisaurus. I would have loved to see Plesiosaurus in the Jurassic World Dominion movie, but unfortunately they didn't include them. So, and then we have the cryptocleids: Abyssosaurus, Columbosaurus, Cryptocleidos, Jupedalia, Chimerosaurus, Morenosaurus, Ophthalmothuli, Pantosaurus, Picrocleidos, Spitrosaurus, Tetanectes, Tricleidos, Viniellosaurus. All right. We have, okay, I'm going to save the Elasmosaurus for last on this. By the way, there are 6 families of Plesiosauroids proper, and then 2 families of Pliosauroids. Both are Plesiosaurus in the general sense, but we see the long neck Plesiosaurs and the short neck Plesiosaurs. The Elasmosaurus is a bit jumbled up, so I'm going to read those last. Bronchosaurus, Leptocleidos, Nicolsaura, Thilulia, Umunosaurus, Vectocleidos, and the polycotylids, Dolichorhynchops, Aguerosaurus, Eopolycotylus, Georgiosaurus, Manamurgus, Maurisiosaurus, Pahasapasaurus, Pulmulosaurus, Paratosaurus, Plesiopleurodon, Polycotylus, Procotylus, Rarosaurus, Silcosuchus, Trinacromerum. And then the Elasmosaurs are a bit tricky to read because they're not in neat lines, but they're jumbled, but I'm going to try this anyway. Albertonectes, Alexisaurus, Alexandronectes, Brimosaurus, Afrosaurus, Aristonectes, Cardiocorax, Calawasaurus, Discosaurus, Elasmosaurus. There's actually, this one is on the ceiling of the Milwaukee Public Museum. in the opening lobby if you're interested. Simoliosaurus. We actually had a Cryolophosaurus in there as well, but I don't know if we still have that or not. We might still have that. Or it might have been on a tray. I think it's still there. Next to the mammoth in the opening hall. Futabosaurus, Fresnosaurus, Goniosaurus, Hydrelmosaurus. I'm going to zoom out to make sure I'm not missing stuff. Hydrotherosaurus, Jucha, Kawanectes, Aeromangosaurus, Legonectes, Lebonectes, Fluvionectes, Morenosaurus. Most of the late Cretaceous. Not many of these made it to the late Cretaceous, but some did, obviously. So, Nacononectes, Ogmodirus, Mortornuria. We got Hydromosaurus, I believe, before. Opalionectes, named because it was turned into opal after it died. It's another one from Australia under unusual preservation conditions. Orophosaurus, Kaiwikia, Terminonatador, which is not Terminator, but its natator is being swimmer. Scanisaurus, Lavanectes. It sounds kind of like Terminator, though, which is kind of funny. Turangisaurus, and then let's zoom out, get the bottom. Mauisaurus, which this may have actually been more back down to size, but some of the initial estimates had it larger. I think it may have been larger, I'm not certain, but if it was, it would have been the largest plesiosaur, long-necked plesiosaur ever. 54 feet long, which is quite incredible. Actually, I think some of them had up to 60 feet long, which is really crazy. But yeah, that is a huge plesiosaur. You kind of would not want to run into that in the ocean. Wollongosaurus, Styxosaurus, Gyrosaurus, we got Sanisaurus, okay. Wapuscanectes, Scanectes, okay, yep. Thalassomedon, Yulfia, Vegasaurus, and Zaraphosora from Morocco. Now we are on to the pliosaurs, the short-necked plesiosaurs, which are in two families, the Romaleosaurids and the pliosaurids. Starting with the Romaleosaurids, which are the more primitive, smaller ones. Anigosaura, Archaeonectris, Aticodracon, Avalonectes, Bathyspondylus, Bichanopliosaurus, Borealinectes, Cryomycetus, Euroclitus, Eurysaurus, Lindwormia, Macroplata, Marisaurus, Maiorosaurus, Euronautes, Romaleosaurus, Stenosaurus, Stenarosaurus. Sorry, I got it right the first time, but it's tongue twisty. Stratosaurus, Thaumatrodracon, Eusopliosaurus. Then we go to the pliosaurids proper. Acostosaurus, Ingwanax, Armenosaurus, Adinburosaurus. I don't know why that was described with a long neck. I think it might have been I'm not exactly certain what's up with that. That might have been a mistake on the artist's part. Brochicenius, Chronectes, Eartosaurus, Eectus. This is split off from Chronosaurus last year, I believe. Hostonectes, Gallardosaurus, Halphiosaurus on the side. This one was kind of set up in lines, but not exactly. And let's see here. Chronosaurus from Australia. Marmonectes, Megalnusaurus, Leopleurodon, Luticosaurus, Luscon, Gallardosaurus, Halphiosaurus, Mykyra, Reticosaurus, Pachycostosaurus, Marmoronectes, Megalnusaurus, Monquirosaurus, Peloneustes, Pachycostosaurus, Pliosaurus, Reticosaurus, Thalassiodracon, And I got my Kyra, right? This is the problem with having them all jumbled up like this, but I may reorganize this at some time, but it's kind of tricky because there's, you know, limited space in this chart, which will at some point have to expand, but you want to fit the small ones in where you can. Sitakasaurus, Simiolestes, Cyanopliosaurus, and Stenorhynchosaurus. Plesiodraconus above it, and that is that for the Plesiosaurus. Next, on to the Mosasaurs, which is also a bit jumbled, but I think not quite as badly. There are 41 genuses in this one so far. Amphicopubus, Ankylosaurus, Corinodens, Cladastes, Dinosaurus, Actinosaurus, Eonatidor, and Amphirosteus. Amphirosteus is the only one on this list that is dubious, as far as I know. I kind of consider this to be the Amphicoleus fragilimus of mosasaurs because the if it existed, it's based on a single vertebra, just like Amphicoleus, which is now missing. And based on the size of it, I think I might have even scaled it down. It might have been bigger, but I kind of didn't know where the vertebra was in, so it could have actually been like the size of a blue whale. But yeah, like Amphicoleus, it would also have been the largest of its kind. The largest dinosaur, or in this case, the largest mosasaur. But it was humongous, but it's based on a missing specimen now, a missing vertebra, just like Amphicoleus. And just like Amphicoleus being the largest. So, Amphirosteus. Oh, and it's all starting with A, so another similarity. We got Cladastes Dinosaurs, which is the most primitive mosasaur. Basically, these things are basically like the closest relatives are monitor lizards. So think of monitor lizards can swim actually. So think of a monitor lizard with flippers, and you've got a mosasaur essentially, which is a big problem with the Jurassic World mosasaur because in addition to being way too big, they put crocodile scales in that when it should probably have had monitor lizard scales. Actinosaur, like an aquatic Komodo dragon, basically. Actinosaurus, Eonatidor, Giavialamimus, which was discovered 2 years ago with weeks off from the next one with this Nathomortis, and which is rare because they rarely ever find these. They can go like 5 years without finding a mosasaur, but they found those two within the same week, and they both start with G. So, Giavialamimus, it was described because as such because it had a very thin jaw, as you can see, just like a gable. Eremiosaurus, Gonansaurus, which was discovered the week later. Globidens, which has the unusual golf ball type teeth in its mouth. Hasiosaurus, Gorionosaurus, Igdamanosaurus, Halisaurus, Corisodon, Plesioplatycarpus, Hanosaurus, Heranosaurus, Kaikaphilu, which is from Antarctica. Let's see here. Let's go to the next set of lines, as it were. Actually, the bottom half of the chart. Plotosaurus, Latoplatycarpus, Prognathodon, Lyodon, Moanosaurus, Romeosaurus, Pleurodens, Russellosaurus, Pannoniosaurus, Phosphorosaurus, Taniwasaurus, Selmasaurus, Cathysaurus, Tylosaurus, Platycarpus, and there's the Mosasaurus, of course, the most famous of the bunch, and the largest, with the exception of Amphirosteus, which is dubious. Platycarpus, Plesiotylosaurus, Xenodens. Xenodens was discovered, I believe, just last year. It was one plesiosaur discovered, one mosasaur discovered, and it was that one last year. There's actually only two plesiosaurs, or more plesiosaurs discovered last year, but there's just one mosasaur. And Aguerosaurus. I don't know if it actually had crocodile-like flippers like that, but that's how it was depicted. So if it did, it would have been kind of cool. But yeah, that one's from Colombia. I can imagine that living like in a river somewhere. I wonder if it did. That would have been. I want to look that up and see if Aguerosaurus had flippers. I mean, not flippers, but like webbed feet for flippers. Thysaur. Okay, and then we have the Ichthyosaurs. 18 different families, and here we go. Most of them are very small families, but there's like 2 that are above like 10 or above. That would be the Chaosaurus and the Ophthalmosaurus. Most of them are like a big bunch of them are in the Ophthalmosaurus. We have 99 genera of this. They don't discover these very commonly either. So they found 2 this year though so far, so that's good. But they've sometimes gone several years without them. Last year they found like 8 in a row, which was unusual. It was very bizarre. Tyosaurus, Parvanatidor. That's the small swimmer again. Osteosaurus. These are one family, one genus families, a lot of them, it seems. Back when they used to do that still. Wimanius, they don't do that anymore with modern cladistics, but they used to sometimes name families after single genuses, and since then some of those families have stuck. So, and then the Eutatsusaurus. These are the most basal ichthyosaurs, by the way. Ichthyosaurus, Basisaurus, Cartarynchus, which is I think just outside of it's included, but this is the most basal ichthyosaur. It's really more like a lizard with flippers. Sclerocormus, Eutatsusaurus. And by the way, my friend Gunter tells me something very interesting about the evolution of ichthyosaurs at this point. Cartarynchus appeared from like 4 million years before Eutatsusaurus. And as you can see, it was an evolutionary jump between something that was like a lizard with flippers into something that had a dolphinoid form in only 4 million years, which is very unusual because 4 million years is the span of a single genus appearing, which, if you think about that by comparison, you think of the genus Canis, which is wolves and dogs, and then you have the genus Vulpes, which is the fox genus. So the difference between foxes and wolves is a genus. And despite that, I mean, there's some non-Vulpes foxes, but that's just an example. So despite that, I mean, they're both basically dogs. Despite that, though, there's this sudden jump in genetic information that appeared in only 4 million years' time. And he's theorizing that something like quantum evolution may be driving that, which is kind of very interesting. Actually, he discovered a Big Think post recently talking about how they discovered that quantum tunneling actually can create new mutations, which I find that absolutely fascinating. So the idea is that the DNA, basically there's optimal mutations being literally quantum computed because the genetics is in superposition. The DNA is in superposition in the nucleus. So if that's the case, I think it would be very fascinating. But yeah, it's like this sudden jump of genetic information that appears out of nowhere, and they're wondering how that happened. And we have the Ophthalmosaurs, Ichthyosaurus. It's Omphalosaurus, sorry. Omphalosaurus, the Gripids, Chauhusaurus, Gripia, Gulosaurus, and then the Mixosaurs. This is also a very primitive group. Barracudosauroids, Chaunispondylis, Connectopelatus, Mixosaurus, Phelaurodon, Svalbardosaurus. That one's actually really tiny. It's like the size of a small fish, or not a small fish, but a large fish. But it's kind of funny to catch an ichthyosaur like when we catch a fish. Tortocnemids, Aurora boreala. I think this was discovered either this year or last year. This one is relatively recent, though. Californosaurus, Cyan Ichthyosaurus, Rachitrema, Toridocnemus, and then we go to the Miriamosaurids. Miriamosaurus, Mycatocephalus, Pisopteryx, Thalattoarchon, the Hudson Elpidids, Hudson Elpidids. There we go. Diarch Mahara, Hudson Elpidia, Macgowania. These are named after, various probably famous paleontologists, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know their names, but people name things after people. Gunter even has some insects named after him, actually, which is kind of interesting. He's a paleoentomologist from Germany. She had predicted certain things about dragonfly evolution with the genitals of dragonflies, and they found transitional fossils that by his predictions, which is kind of cool. Okay, and then we have Temnodontosaurus, which is an unusually large ichthyosaur, but nowhere near as large as the Chaosaurus, which we'll see later. Now, the leptonectids are very unusual. These are kind of the swordfish equivalent of ichthyosaur, or ichthyosaur equivalent of swordfishes, as you can see. Urinosaurus, Excalibosaurus, which is another example of convergent evolution. Leptonectes, Wallisaurus, and then the Ichthyosaurus proper, Ichthyosaurus, Malawania, Proto-Ichthyosaurus. And this one was discovered. This was the first ichthyosaur discovered, actually. So, kind of cool. Suevo leviathans, which is just one single genus. This is the same situation with the single genus families, which they were in the habit of doing back in the day, but they no longer do. Suevo leviathan. It's kind of a hallmark from the old Linnaean taxonomy system, which is still kind of used as a practical measure, but you know, we've kind of gone past it with cladistics now, but it still has some practical utility despite that. So Stenopterygids, Trichacosaurus, Halpheopteryx, Magnipterygius, Stenopterygius. And now we have the two largest families, the Chaosaurus and the Ophthalmosaurs. Start with the Chaosaurus, Basanosaurus, Calawea. That one's from British Columbia, but it's not a dinosaur. Symbospondylus. None of these are dinosaurs, but you know, I mentioned the Ferrosaurus before, which is from my dad's British Columbia. So. Guanlingsaurus, Pachygonosaurus, Guizhouichthyosaurus, Phantomosaurus, Himalayasaurus, Shastasaurus, which is the largest ichthyosaur ever discovered. It's the size of a whale, as you can see. See, absolutely huge, 69 feet long. We have Shonisaurus, Typicus ichthyosaurus, sorry. Zinmanosaurus. Then we have the Ophthalmosaurus, which is largest, but fortunately they're in nice, neat lines, so it's going to be easy to keep track of. Acamptonectes, Equuetzpalin, Aguerosaurus, Arthropterygius, Athabascasaurus, Beptanodon. Zoom out. Brachypterygius, Catudosaurus, Capulisaurus, Cetarthrosaurus, Cryptopterygius, Delphinosaurus, Gangosaurus, Grandelius, Jabalisaurus. I think Grandelius was discovered last year, by the way. Jabalisaurus was one of the 8 or so genuses that was discovered. It was a huge flurry of ichthyosaur discoveries last year. Jabalisaurus, Janusaurus, Kazakhstanosaurus, Kelhauia, I guess. Kaihai Suka, I believe that was also discovered last year. Kaihai Suka, I believe it's pronounced. Lininia, Macropterygius. All right. Myospondylus, Mollisaurus, Muiscosaurus, Nanopterygius, Ophthalmosaurus, Pulvinia, Ophthalmosaurus, Parasaurus, Pervushovisaurus, Pisosaurus, Platypterygius, Plutonisaurus, Cimberschiosaurus, Cisteronia, Spherodontes. Spherodontes is probably a fish. It was based on spherical type teeth. The problem is we don't have the teeth anymore, but someone said based on the description that it's probably a fish, but we don't know. And it's kind of like the Apatodon problem. We can't know because we've lost the specimen. We don't have anything unless someone finds it, of course. Sumpala, Spheltonectes, Thalassodraco, Undurosaurus. And we have Yassikovia. Kind of sucks. It's kind of like the Amphicoleus problem. Difficult to find that one. You know, the specimen's gone. It's probably disintegrated, actually. But and it's hard to find new ones with radar because the bone is so similar to the strata itself. And then we have the Pterosaurs, which is the Rhamphorhynchoids and Pterodactyloids, with 225 genera, as you can see in the corner here. Let's start with the Rhamphorhynchoids. A Neurognathus. This is a Neurognathus. A Neurognathus. These are the frog jaws. The very small pterosaurs. Batrachognathus. Cascocata. Dowhuegopterus. No, Dowhuegopterus. Dendrorhynchoids. Jeholoopterus. Luopterus. Mesodactylus. Cynomacrops, and Vertebratus, which is the only one from the Cretaceous, and possibly the only, depending on how you classify them, the only Rhamphorhynchid from the Cretaceous. I think those might be outside of Rhamphorhynchoidea, but if they weren't Rhamphorhynchoids, or weren't Pterodactyloids, I put them in Rhamphorhynchoidea, so they're Rhamphorhynchoids on this chart. The Wukongopterids were transitional between Rhamphorhynchoids and Pterodactyloids. This is the next group. Darwinopterus, Cuspicephalus, Wukongopterus, Changopterus, Duzanopterus, Kunpengopterus, Pterorhynchus, Dimorphodons, Caliciventus, Peripcephalus, Dimorphodon, Patinosaurus, and Ramphinion. And then we go to the Campylognathoids. Arctico Dactylus. This is the smallest specimen of a pterosaur discovered. Though it's probably, I think it was a baby though, so it would have been bigger than that. But that's as far as, that's all we have to go on. Austriodraco, Austriodactylus, Bergmanodactylus, Campylognathoids, Carneodactylus, Cavuramus, Eudimorphodon, Phexinolipterus, Pacognathus, which was discovered this year actually, Prionodactylus, Procolosaurus, Pteromimus reticodactylus, with a little crest up there you can see. Ciazodactylus yellowfomte, which was also discovered this year. And then the Rhamphorhynchids proper. Alacaruan, Angustinoripterus, Belubrunus, Cacabupteryx, Comodactylus, Dorognathus, Fenghuangopterus, Harpacognathus, Gianchanognathus, Gianchanogopterus, Clobiodon, Nesodactylus, Ulithorhynchus, Orientognathus, Rhamphorhynchus, Kinlongopterus, Sortes, Scaphognathus, Sericopterus, Utidactylus. Now we go to the pterodactyloids. These four are in the Pteranodontians. So we have, it's a large clade of pterosaurs. Ichthyodactylus, Archaeoichthyodactylus, Ichthyodactylus. Ichthyodactylus was the one where I said there was an ornithodesmus. Well, this was the original ornithodesmus. It was renamed because of the dinosaur we discovered. We mentioned earlier. This has been now renamed to Ichthyodactylus, which then renamed the family as well. Lushibang neuraxius, Hongshanopterus, Leosxiopterus, Longchengpterus, Pangupterus, Wyomingopterus, which is just a dubious genus, but who knows, it might be named properly named at some point. The Nyctosaurs, Cymergia, Barbaridactylus, Nyctosaurus, Alcyone, Alamodactylus, Musquizopteryx. And then Pteranodons proper. Dondraco, Ichrandraco, Geosternbergia, Dethidraco, Linglongopterus, Pteranodon, and Santanodactylus. And then the Ornithocherids. This one is a bit of a jumble again, kind of like the Alamosaurus and the some of the Pliosaurus and Mosasaurus and so on. But I'll try and, some of them are kind of lined up, so I'll try to do this here. Aerodraco, Ambilidetes, Brasiliodactylus, Camposipterus, Dragwenia, which was discovered this year. Pterodactylus. These are the not dinosaurs, pterosaurs that were in the original Jurassic Park novel. They had 6 of them in the dome in Isla Nublar in the novel. Pterodraco, Iberodactylus, Leoningopterus, Ludodactylus, Mimodactylus, Merodactylus, Perirao, Pixie, Paleornis, Targaryen Draco, after the famous queen in Game of Thrones, Octenodactylus, Thupangaka, which is here, Ixionopterus. All right. Try the bottom here. Edodactylus, Anhinguera, Euripodactylus, Eurypasaurus, Barbosania, Arthrodactylus, Colchicephalus, Ossidraco, Coloborhynchus, Avgodectes, Boreopterus, Simiolopterus, Pterodraco, I think I got that one in the top list. Guidraco, Hauopterus, it's kind of hard to keep track of them now here. Hemipterus, Lontodraco, Lontrodectes, we got the Mithunga, I believe, before. Mithunga, do it again just in case. Lycorhynchus, Ornithocheirus, Sauropozosaurus, which is an informally named pterosaur. Ceradraco, Ceracopteryx, Tropiognathus, Zenuanopterus, and Unwindia. And we have the Ctenochasmids. Bipayopterus, Cathaopterus, Gonansaurus, Huanhepterus, Patogopterus, Pladiorhynchus, Ctenochasmus, Gigopterus, Gladocephaloideus, Capodactylus, Pterophiltrus, Aurora edzarco, Elanodactylus, Phalangus, Leodactylus, Capodactylus, okay, Moganopterus, Pterodostro, Pterophiltrus, Tecuodactylus. And the pterodactylids. Aerodactylus, Cyanorampus, Diapocephalus, Forfexopterus, Bregionopterus, Artiodactylus, Dermodactylus, Cryptodracon, Leopteryx, Ningchengopterus, Pterodactylus, which is the first pterosaur ever discovered, which is what why pterosaurs are sometimes dubbed pterodactyls. And Germanodactylus, dactylids, we have Ultimopterus, Normanognathus, Tentagura-ipterus, Eosipterus, Germanodactylus, and Wenupteryx. And now down here, these three, the Azarchids, the Tapijars, and the Tsingurids, are in the same grouping. So let's start with the Azarchids. These are the largest pterosaurs ever. They include the largest pterosaurs ever. Some of them are regular size, but they include the largest ones ever. Aerotitan, Elanca, Elbadraco, Arel edzarco, Aramborgiana, edzarco, Cretornis, Bugalubovia, Argentina Draco, Simioliornis, Cryodracon, that was discovered the other year. From Canada. Eurolimeornis, Doradorhynchus, Ura edzarco, Hatzegopteryx, Leptostomia, which is very unusual. This one has like an ibis-like. This is the closest one I could fit into, but it's probably going to fit its own family. By the way, the little ankylosaur I mentioned before is probably going to have its own family as well. The one that's like a turtle. But this one is probably going to have its own family at some point if it's ever having a sister family is found, a sister taxon is found. But you can see it basically evolved to eat, shellfish on the bottom of the river or whatever. So yeah, Leptostomia with the long ibis-like beak. Mistral Edzarco, Montana Edzarco, Navajo Dactylus, Ornithostoma, Phosphatodraco, Paleocorsornis, Quetzalcoatlus, which was the original largest pterosaur, till the other ones were found. Radiodactylus, Thanatos Dracon, which I think this one might have found this year or maybe last year. This one is very recent. Vectidraco, Volgodraco, Z. Jangopterus, and Xericeps. And then we have the Tapijarids, which, as you can obviously see, formed apparently some of the inspiration for some of the banshees on James Cameron's Avatar. Afrotapijara, Apatorampus, Amburadactylus, Benetasia, Bacanidraco, Kyajara, Calpidactylus, Chaoyangopterus, Eoedzarco, Eopteranodon, Europajara, Huaxiopterus, Javelinodactylus, Jedopterus, Cariridraco, Charisdracon, Lacusovagus, Microtuban, Nemicolopterus, Samrukia, Shenzaopterus, Tapijara, Synopterus, Tupandactylus, Thalassodromius, Whitea, Tupuxawara. Then the Zongaripterids, Banguela, Lonchognathosaurus, Orthocipterus, Domicodactylus, Disungaripterus, Hypsilosaurus, Noripterus, and Puntanipterus. And then lastly, we have the final subchart of the whole world's most complete dinosaur chart, which is the synapses, which of course are not dinosaurs again, but they include things like Dimetrodon, which people commonly think of as dinosaurs, or the thing that people would probably think of as a dinosaur, which isn't on this, is an Ankylosaurus, or let's see, Moschops is another one. Then you have things like Placerius and so on, which people would think of as dinosaurs too, which are not actually dinosaurs, but synapsids. I don't include things like Scutosaurs on this chart because I see those as more like stem reptiles. And I mean, they're not synapsids, but I didn't include them in a separate subchart because I think of them as more as like stem reptiles. But yeah, so the synapses are included in this chart because of animals like Dimetrodon or Canamaria or Moschops or Ankylosaurus or Placerius. Now, of course, there was a little bit of a problem when doing this chart because we had this thing where, if I include, where is the cutoff line? Where does it become, some of these are dinosaur-like, some of these are not dinosaur-like, but if you got to include one, at what point you'd say this scales down, it's going to scale into something that you're not going to think of as a dinosaur anymore. And so because of that, just for completion's sake, I had to include all of them, even though some of them are obviously not dinosaur-like at all, but are more the equivalent of Mesozoic rodents. The smallest of which is the mini cynodon, which is basically a mouse. It's about 3 inches long. So forgive that. That's why this is the way that it is. It had to be included for completion. So I have all the synapsids here, even though you would not think of these as even resembling dinosaurs in some cases, even though some of them people have, in a pop culture sense, called dinosaurs, which is why things like Dimetrodon or Lystrosaurus ended up in the recent Jurassic World Evolution movie. Oops. It zoomed out for a second. Let's see. Where's the Lystrosaurus? Oh, here's Lystrosaurus. Anyway, okay, let's get started. Oh, and by the way, a quarter of all the animals in the chart are on this one subchart. There's 589 animals on this. So let's get started. Hopefully we can get through this relatively quickly. Start with the Pelycosaurs, which are 2 different subgroupings of 6 families. Aguerosaurus is the Cassiids here, from Cassiosauria. Illyriosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Eurysiopaton, Calibrechion, Cassia, Cassioids, Cassiopsis, Caudelorhynchus with the tiny head, proportional to the body, Dathiosaurus, Anatosaurus, Eocassia, Euromycter, Leludorhynchus, Canoxosaurus, Martensius, Oromictor, Phredophasma, Ruthenosaurus, Trichosaurus. And then the Eothyroids, Eothyrus, Eodeliops, Velonictus. And then the true Pelycosaurs or Eopelycosaurs. And starting with the Veranopods. Aerosaurus, Aningia, Apsisaurus, Archaeovenator, Ascendonanus, Cabarzia dendromia, which is the oldest animal on this chart. It is the very first synapsid ever discovered, and its name is its tree mother, basically because it was found on a tree stump and it was discovered with an infant next to it, and it was displaying parenting behavior. So it's kind of funny that the family structure goes all the way back to the Carboniferous. It would have been the synapsid sauropod split from the late Carboniferous. So it's kind of cool to think of that. Parents caring for young all the way back to the Paleozoic. Elliott-Smithia, Eoscancer, Heliosaurus, Mycenosaurus, Microveranops, Milosaurus, Microsaurus, Nitosaurus, Pyosia, Ruthiromia, Tamba carnifex, Throsmosaurus, Veranodon, Veranops, Watongia. Okay. Sphenocodon, which is the closest to the mammals of all the Pelycosaurs. Cryptovenator, which also includes Dimetrodon. Cryptovenator, Ctenorhacus, Ctenospondylus, Cutlaria, Dimetrodon, Echinurpaton, Eohaptidus, Gorgodon, not Gorgon like in Greek mythology, or it'd be kind of funny if they named one Demogorgon. Actually, that would be in the Gorgonopsid family, but they did that. But it'd be funny if they did. Okay, Gorgodon, Haptidus, Hypsilohaptidus, Eanthodon, Kenomagnathus, Macromerion, Neosaurus, Paleohateria, Pantelosaurus, Paleohateria as opposed to Madhateria. Just kidding. Secodontosaurus, Shadjaya, Sphenocodon, Stegosaurus, Tapinosaurus, which is like the Metrodon above, but much bigger. Tenuacaptor, Tetroceratops, which was potentially a therapsid, but I think it got moved back to the Pelycosaurs, and you can see it's pretty small, but there was like 4 little stub horns on it. More like knobs. And Edaphosaurs, which are plant eaters, actually. So these were meat-eating, these ate plants. Bohemiclavulus, Edaphosaurus, Gordodon, Glaucosaurus, Ianthosaurus, Lupiosaurus, Ramodendron, Remigiomontanus, Xyrospondylus, and Ophiacodon. This one also includes one with another fin on it, which I think is the only one that's a fin that's not in Edaphosaurs of the Sphenocodons. Archaeothyrus, Baldwinonus, Clepsydrops, Ophiacodon, Protoclepsydrops, Stereophelodon, Stereorhacus, and Veranosaurus. And now we go to the therapsids. There are 6 subgroups of therapsids: the Anomodonts, Biarmasuchans, Cyanodonts, Dinocephalians, Gorgonopsians, and Therocephalians. So we're going to go through these one at a time. By the way, I think the Biarmasuchans are the earliest therapsids, and then followed by the Anomodonts. I think the Dinocephalians come next after that. Then the Anomodonts. Then after that, there is a clade that includes the Cynodonts, Gorgonopsids, and Therocephalians. Gorgonopsids are at the sister of the group that includes the Cynodonts and the Therocephalians. And the Cynodonts, of course, are the ones that eventually evolved into us, or mammals. So technically, we classify as Cynodonts as well, but for the same reason, we're not going to include ducks and pigeons in the Troodont family. We're not going to include elephants and humans and giraffes in the Cynodont group here. So they cut it off at, I think it's the mammalian morph. So Megazastrodon and above, I consider mammals, and below that point, I consider non-mammalian synapses or non-mammalian therapsids. So these are the mammal-like reptiles, although I don't know if that name is commonly much in use anymore, but these are technically kind of reptiles, but, you know, diverging into mammals, basically, or between mammals and reptiles, depending on how you classify reptiles, of course. All right, starting with the Ionomodonts. Cystocephalids, Cystocephaloids, Cystocephalus, Coingosaurus, Chembowacella, Sauroscaptor, Emidopsids, Compsodon, Diglodon, Emidops, Myosauroids, Myosaurus, Pelmidops. And let's see here. Endothiodonts, Abjudon, Brachyprosopus, Cheliopsosaurus, Colobdectes, Emidochampsa, Emidorhinus, Endothiodon, Eodicynodon, Lanthanostegus, Pachystegus, Prodicynodon. All right. Next bunch of families. The Galeopods, Galeochirus, Galeops, Galeopus, Galeochirus, I mispronounced that, I think. Okay, Galeopus, Parasuminia, Patranomodon, the Geckids. There's a difference from geckos, or geekids, I don't know exactly how it's pronounced. Alacephalodon, Bulbasaurus, Geckia, Hautoniana, Pelanomodon, Cyops, Brachyureniscus, this is the Eumantelids again, Brachyureniscus, Cerata Illurus, Cryptocynodon, Diillurodon, Emidoranus, Eurycororhinus, Huneus, Nutanella, Opistoctenodon, Parringtoniella, Procerodon, Sterignathus, Cynostocephalus, the Kingorids, Dicynodontoids, Combusia, Niasodon, Phliptosaurus. Okay. Acratophore, it is the Canamariids. This is the largest family in the group. It's from the Middle Triassic, actually, though most of the other ones are from the Permian. This one family was in the Triassic. Acratophorus, Angonisaurus, Calionasus, Ternaria, Christonasus, Dinodontosaurus, Dolichuranus, Elatosaurus, Elephantosaurus, Eubrachiosaurus, Ischiwlastia, Jachalaria, Canamaria, Lissowikia. I remember when this one was discovered a couple of years ago. This one was the size of a small elephant. Or this is a big animal. It's kind of got a small stubby tail too, like an elephant. Mugrigiberia, Nasoplanetes, Paracanamaria, Parvobestiola, Pentasaurus placerius, Planetorostris, Putillosaurus, Rabidosaurus, Rucnosaurus, Rapilinosaurus, Radiodromius, Rhinocerocephalus, Rhinodicynodon, Sangusaurus, Shanbecanimaria, Shanciodon, Sonocanamaria, Stelacaria, Sungeodon, Tetragonius, Euphodocyclops, Uralocanamaria, Vinceria, Wadiosaurus, Eucameratus Zambiasaurus. And then we have over here the Lystrosaurids, Basilodon, Canolonia, Daptocephalus, Delectosaurus, Diphanodon, Dynanomodon, Elf, Euptychocanathus, Gordonia, Interpressosaurus, Jimusaria, Catumbia, Quazulusaurus, Lystrosaurus, Paramodon, Syntocephalus, Tauhiodon, Terphanodon, Vivaxosaurus. Australobarbarus, Cteniosaurus, the Kingshanodon, Idellosaurus, Caesaria, Kichinganomodon, Odontocyclops, Odenodon, Rastrodon, Brachiocephalus, Tropidostoma. Okay, and Paleocephalids, Anomodon, Broilius, Dictodon, Emidorhynchus, Eocymops, Cupia, Prosictodon, Robertia, Talgnathus, the Venicovids, Anomalcephalus, Biserodens, Myctosuchus, Archeria, Siminia, Tiara judens with the saber-tooth like teeth, which is kind of cool. It's on a reptile though, mammal-like reptile, but it's like a saber-toothed cat, but from the Permian. Ulemica, Venjucovia. What I find very interesting about this is there was a Permian mass extinction that led to the Triassic explosion, and I wonder if the Permian mass extinction had not happened, the dinosaurs would not have evolved, and I wonder if mammals would have actually. They were. I mean, the synapses were the predominant form of life on Earth at that point, and I almost wonder if they would have evolved much earlier at that point, or something like them. Okay, the Anomodonts are the largest subgrouping, so we've gotten good progress so far. So bear with me, just 5 more groups. The smallest one comes next, which is the Biarmasuchids. Only 31 genera rather than 138 genera. Okay, start with Biarmasuchids. It's Suchoids, Biarmasuchians, so with the Biarmasuchids first. Biarmasuchoids, Biarmasuchus, Raranimus, Tulignathus, the Burnettids, Bolocephalus, Burnetia, Herpetoskylax, Ictidorhinus, Isongops, Lemurosaurus, Lendi, Leucocephalus, Lobolopex, Lophorinus, Lycanodon, Moboceras, Nioxentitia, Pachydetes, Paraburnettia, Proburnettia, Rubidgena, reading too fast here, Ustia. And then the bottom grouping, Eotitanasuchids, Alrasuchus, Eotitanasuchus, and the Hipposaurs, Hipposauroids, Hipposaurus, and Pseudohipposaurus. Pretty easy to remember. Microuranids, Microurania, Neaftasuchus, Nicosaurus, and Rhizia. So then we have the Cynodonts, which are the most mammal-like of the 6, and it's what the mammals evolved from. And I think this is the second largest group, so bear with me. Here goes. Brazilodonts, Agudotherium, Botucarotherium, Brazillotherium, Brazilodon, Mini Cynodon, which is again the smallest on the chart. You can see just how small that is. It's I'm gonna count it. It's like 13 pixels or something like that. It's really tiny. Maybe 12 pixels. Yeah, Mini Cynodon, Panchetocynodon, Protheriodon, and let's go with let's get these guys. Diademodons. These are, I think, the largest Cynodonts. Actually, there's, I think, a couple of might be tied with or larger, but I believe this is the largest. Diademodon and Titanogomphodon. And then we have the Chiniquidonts, which I believe may have clustered a few families together, but, or, you know, a family and like a few like outliers together, but it's the best way I could lump them so far. So we have Alemotherium, Aliodon, Bonocynodon, Candelariodon, Charuodon, Chiniquidon, Decanodon, Diegocanus, Dromatherium, Ecteninion, Galmia, Hania, Inditherium, Cunminia, Lepagia, Lumcuia, in Murthodon, Microconodon, Polonodon, Probagnathus, Probelisodon, Prosostrodon, Pseudotriconodon, Rowaconodon, Santa Cruz Gnathus, Tessalacia, Therioherpeton, Tricuspis, and Trucydocynodon. All right, let's go to the side here. This one is actually probably the most famous cynodont, non-mammalian cynodont, of course, because we're cynodonts too, technically. Cynognathus. I think they put like ears on this, but these will not have ears because ears do not appear until the Therian split, which is marsupials and placental. So that's well within. You notice that only mammals have external ears, and even not all mammals. You have the monotremes don't have ears, so they put ears on that, but it shouldn't have ears. The Gyrosaurs, Cromptodon, Sinosaurus, Gyrosaurus, Glaucinodontoides, Progalosaurus. We have down here Prosinosuchids, Abdalodon, Chirasognathus, Divinia, Hoengocynodon, Madisaurus, Nanosynodon, Ischimbodon, Prosinosuchus, Sludica, Uralocynodon. The Theranaxodontids, Bolotrodon, Icthyodopsis, Nyctosaurus, Novocynodon, Platycronalius, Theranaxodon, and Vetusodon. Vetusodon, sorry. Okay, we have the Pterosaurs, which includes a particularly large one, which was discovered. What is it? It's free. Oh, it froze on me. Sorry, guys. Let me zoom back in. It does that sometimes. Sorry, getting back down. Bichonodon, Cricodon, the Trirakodonts here. Bichonodon, Cricodon impedens, which was discovered last year. It's a particularly large one. Langbergia, Neotrirakodon, Redondognathus, Cynognathus, and Trirakodon. And let's go down the Traversodonts. This includes the largest cynodonts. Andicynodon, Arctotraversodon, Bryogomphidon, Colbertosaurus, Didodon, Etjoya, Exeritodon, Gomphodontosuchus, Gornogomphidon, Habiaya, Kataigidodon, Luangwa, Mandagomphidon, Macedognathus, Malbugia, Menodon, Microscalinodon, Nanogomphidon, Pascualognathus, Plinthogomphidon, Protuberum, Rosiuria, Ruberodon, Santa Cruzodon, Scalinodontoids, Scalinodon, Siriusgnathus, Theropsodon, Traversodon. The Trithelodonts, Calimia, Diarthrognathus, Iliatotherium, Eoratia, Eragotherium, Mitridon, Pachygonellus, Patsia, Riograndia, Trithelodon, and the Tritylodonts, these are the most mammal-like of the cynodonts. Now, I don't know which one is the most mammal-like in particular, but it includes the most this family is right outside of the mammaliomorph or mammaliform group that includes Megazastrodon, which I consider the first mammal proper. So Tritylodonts are here. Bienotherium, Bienothyroids, Bocotherium, Dianzongia, Dinabetodon, Phociomanus. I believe that was this is actually the latest surviving of all the Tritylodonts, of all the non-mammalian therapsids, period. After that point, they were just kind of taken over by the more competitive mammals that died out in the early Cretaceous, as you can see. That was the last one. Kyantotherium. This one, actually, I believe it pushed the time of the non-mammalian therapsids for like 10 million years, something like that. Okay, so then we have Kyantotherium, Lufungia, Masticitherium. Masticith. Damn it. Sorry. They make these names ridiculous. Masticitherium. Monty Rectus. Monty Rectus. Neurotherium. Oligokyphus. Pelistodon. Pseudotherium. Shorticodon, Stereognathus, Tychiodon, Tritylodon, Xenocretasuchus, Ionotherium, Eunanodon. And now we have the Dinocephalians, which include a lot of the large stuff in there, large therapsids. This one is it's one of the smaller families, but it's still like the largest small family. It's like 50-some genuses in it, I believe. Yeah, 51. Okay, starting with the Ankylosaurs. Admetophonius Ankylosaurus, which I believe is either the largest or tied with the largest therapsid with Lysowickia, the big one before. Would not want to run into this thing. This is a nasty meat eater. Archaeocylodon, Australocylodon, Brithopus, Cthomeloporus, Deuterosaurus, Doliosauriscus, Eocylodon, Echosaurus, Eurosaurus, Microcylodon, Menemiosaurus, Nodocyodon, Orthopus, Pompoponius, Perantiosaurus, Pithinosuchus, Pseudantiosaurus, Cynophonius, Cyodon, and Titanophonius. And the Estimanosuchids. Estimanosuchus, this is kind of cool. It has like antlers growing on it, like stubs of antlers on them. Estimanosuchus, Molybdopigus, Molybdopigus, Parabradysaurus, Thredosaurus, Fredosuchus, Thinosaurus, Ropelodon, Styracocephalus, and the Titanosuchids. Archaeosuchus, Artemus, Dinocynodon, Enobius, Joncaria, Lamiosaurus, Phoneosuchus, Scullia, not related to Dana Scully of the X-Files fame, I don't believe. Titanosuchus, and the Tepanocephalids, which include Mostrop, which is probably one of the most famous. That and the Ankylosaurus is probably the most famous Dinocephalians, including maybe Estimanosuchus. All right. Cryocephalosaurus, Dimacrodon, Driveria, Keratocephalus, Mastrosonia, Mormosaurus, Moschops, Rebecosaurus, Struthiocephalus, Dipinocananus, Dipinocephalus, Ulemosaurus. And then the Gorgonopsians. These is the single family of this group, but it's still a whole subgroup unto its own. Alorognathus, Alurosaurus, Aloposaurus, Arctognathus, Arctops, Arctosuchus, Brumisaurus, Cerdodon, Cerdorhinus, Choetosaurus, Calandina, Cyanodraco, Cyanosaurus. Let me go to the next level. Delphosiognathus, Dinogorgon, Demigorgon. Just joking. I put that in there to see if you guys caught it. So, oops. See if you guys had fallen asleep on me. So to zoom in again. Sorry. Remember, this chart is humongous. It's size-wise, if you were to print it out, it would be 30 feet tall, or about a little over 30 feet tall by like 20 feet wide. So it takes time to zoom down, and sometimes it becomes unstable and flashes out to the top again. Okay, so Dinogorgon, Eoarctops, Eryphostoma, Genovum, Gorgonops, Inoostranzevia. I believe that was the largest one. Camagorgon, Leontosaurus, Lycanops, Nedjlila, Naknitsa, Paragalerinus Forex, which was discovered this year, Pravoslavlevia, Rubigia. I think Rubigia and Ostranzevia may be tied for the largest, depending. I mean, the art has this larger, but the length is a little bit longer, but they might be tied. Ruhu Cerberus, Saroctonus. Oh, let's see if you pronounce that right. Ruhu Cerberus. I got it right. Saroctonus, Skylocops, Smilosaurus, Suchogorgon, Psychosaurus, Vitacogorgon, and Wingwosaurus. All right. So we have one last subgroup, the Therosophilians. Quick note on these guys of the Therapsids. I did you might have noticed a lot of them come from South Africa, from called the Karoo Basin down there, and they find a lot of Therapsids. I did a count once out of curiosity, and it turned out that almost exactly 50% of all Therapsids come from that one place in South Africa. And then another 20% come from Russia, and then the remaining 30% come from a scattering of a whole bunch of other countries. So, all over the world, basically. But yeah, so 70% of all Therapsids are found in South Africa and Russia combined. And 50% are in South Africa. So the Therosophilians, which is the last of the 6 and the smallest of the 3 large ones. One's over 100. All right. The Barides: Alurosuchus, Anticosuchus, Baria, Dongosaurus, Hazenia, Microgomphodon, Nothogomphodon, Notectoides, Ortosiodon, Scalopognathus, Traversodontoides, and then the Ichthyosuchids, Blatoidealistes, Chilonovia, Ichthyosucoids, Ichthyosucops, Ichthyosuchus, Carnites, Macroscalosaurus, Malasaurus, Muchia, Mupashi, Perplexisaurus, Scalopodontes, Scaloporhinus, Scaloposuchus, Sylphictidoides, and the Erisiolacertids, Erisiolacerta, Pediosaurus, Sylphidosuchus, the Lysidophids, Chorosaurus, Lysidiops, Tetracynodon, and the Nenictodopids. I believe this is the largest family of the group. Actually, maybe that and the Skylacosaurus. One of the two is. These ones I actually spliced some images together because there wasn't enough actual images online, so I took some images and modified some things. Achitognathus, Anatherapsidus, Caudio, Ceratops, Ceratosuchoids, Ceratosuchus, Chthanosaurus, Euchamberzia, Gorochovetsia, Hoffmeiria, Bengops, Ictidognathus, Ictidostoma, Geophingia. I actually spliced this together from stuff, but then I painted stuff in. It kind of turned out well, the tiger stripes on it. Mirotenthes, Moschaurinus, Nenictodops, Nautolurodon, Oliverosuchus, Polyctosuchus, Proelopecopsis, Promoscorhynchus, Pervlavia, Shiguagnathus, Zerulodontops. Down to the next line. Lycosuchids, Creperinella, Gorinicus, sorry. Lycosuchus, Cymorhinella, Theriodesmus, the Regisaurus, Urumchia, the Scoloposaurus, Homodontosaurus, Ichthyocephalus, Ichthyodon, Ichthyodraco, Nenictocephalus, Nenictosuchus, Polycynodon, Regosaurus, Scalopocephalus, Scalopodon, Scalopolacerta, Scaloposaurus, Sylpholestes, Yike-Zao-Gia, Eloposidiops, Elopecodon, Elopecognathus, Elopecorhinus, Arnognathus, Cyanariognathus, Glanosuchus, Hexocynodon, Hyorhynchus, Ictidoparia, Ictidosaurus, Julognathus, Carwalteria, Cotylocephalon, Marisaurus, Pardosuchus, Porosteognathus, Pristerognathus, Pterosaurus, Tomolestes, Skylocoids, Skylocorhinus, Skylocosaurus, Skylocosuchus, Scymnosaurus, Tamboria, Theroids, and Xenosaurus. And then we have the Trochosuchids. Hyenasuchus, Trochorhinus, Trochosaurus, and Trochosuchus. And lastly, the Watsids. Delancua, Ictidochamsa, Megawatsia, Microwatsia, Moschawatsia, Ophidostoma, Theriognathus, and Viatcosuchus. And that is the last of the synapsids and the last animal on the world's most complete dinosaur chart. I'm going to include a link in the description of this. This will not actually fit on Instagram or DeviantArt or any other art platform. It can only ever fit on a Google download link, which I will include in the description. I'm going to fix the problem with what happened to Marapunisaurus's label and feet, and a couple other little problems I found along the way. But once I fix those, I'm going to include a link in the description so you can download this for yourself. I can't sell it because there's art from all over the place on it. I mean, I work for, my own private use, but obviously I can't sell it because it includes other people's art on it. So, but you can have a copy of it for free if you want in the download link. So I will click out of this now. This is ours. This thing's been like, I'm probably going to timestamp these when I put them in the, upload the video, because this has been going on for 3 hours and 12 minutes so far. So, so yeah, this is my world's most complete dinosaur chart, and I'll see you in a later video. Hold on, zooming out. Sorry. Let's zoom up to the whole. Let's get a shot of one big shot of the chart first before I go. The whole screen. I can get the whole screen. There it is, the whole chart, all together in one big picture. There you go. See you guys. Ending now.